Oh. Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, and it is August 15th, and we're going to start our board meeting. I have asked our supervisor, Anaya Kirk, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Nice to see everyone. And as most of you know, we start out by talking about what we do here in Tuolumne County. We care for each other. We come out when there's an issue for a community member and help them. And in this boardroom, we also show courtesy and respect to everyone in the room. And with that, I also give some kind of a quote. Usually it's on kindness. This quote is, it's related to kindness, but it's a nod to the people in Maui and specifically Lahaina. And it is a quote from the Reverend Abraham Akaka. He was well known there 30 years. He gave sermons in both Hawaiian and in English. And here's something he had to say. I'd like us to all take it in. Aloha is the unconditional desire to promote the true good of other people in a friendly spirit out of a sense of kinship. And that's what I hope for all of us today. All right, with that, we will open with the oral communications. This is a time for the community to come forth and speak on anything that is not on the agenda. The agendas are back on the back table there, and you would have 3 minutes to make an announcement or tell us something that's been on your mind.
Good morning, supervisors.
Good morning.
Last night, I participated in a training on how to set a disaster shelter up when a disaster hits our community. Our County Director of Emergency Service, Dory Beats, had arranged for the Red Cross to train over 30 CERT volunteers to learn the process. It was a success. And having 30 more volunteers to be ready on a moment's notice is critical for our people when disaster hits. Thank you, Dory, and her staff, and the American Red Cross. I recently became a volunteer for the American Red Cross in April of 2023. My motivation was the urgency to have local volunteers be trained to help during winter storms and wildfire disasters. In 2018, after the Camp Fire, I drove to Paradise to work in the warehouse with 4 other people from Tuolumne County. We drove through the city of Paradise and discovered the devastation of this fire. We talked to the Office of Emergency Services. We talked with residents. Heartbreaking, to say the least. When I returned, I vowed to help Tuolumne County become better prepared for disasters. Our county has made some progress, but there is so much more to do. The county government cannot do it all. Individual citizens must take on the responsibility to help our community be prepared, such as adhering to the county vegetation ordinance, signing up for the emergency alert communication system, developing a family plan notebook for fire and flood disasters, preparing go bags for each person in the family and each pet, never going below half a tank of gas for your car, checking out the county website, calling CAL FIRE for a property inspection of defensible space, attending county forums on preparedness, starting a fire-wise community in your neighborhood, and lastly, becoming a Red Cross volunteer and getting trained to help with our community when a house fire hits, to serve when a disaster shelter opens, to drive the Red Cross trailers to the disaster, to teach others, including children, about fire preparedness, or to help with medical and mental health needs as a nurse or a clinician. The need for volunteers in this county is at a crisis stage. When we go into disaster mode, we need our local people to participate to do the work. In April of this year, we were under 10 Red Cross volunteers for our county. Let us do our part to care for our community. Check out redcross.org and click on volunteer. You will make a difference. Please pass the word on to your constituents. I left flyers at the back table. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Kevin Hines will be speaking about suicide prevention at the fairgrounds on Saturday, September 9th at 2 p.m. Just read a little bit of his bio here. Kevin Hines' story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and a reminder for us to love the life we have. Kevin is a multi-award-winning filmmaker, best-selling author, as well as an award-winning global suicide prevention and mental health advocate. 2 years after he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 19, he attempted to take his own life by jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge. He is now one of only 36 people who've survived the 220-foot jump. Kevin's story is now the only evidence-based story of a suicide attempt survived. In 2016, Mental Health America awarded him its highest honor, the Clifford W. Beers Award, for his efforts to improve the lives of and attitudes towards people with mental illness. He was also awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by National Council for Behavioral Health in partnership with Eli Lilly, and he was named a Voice Awards Fellow and Awards winner by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs has awarded him more than 30 military excellence medals as a civilian. The event will kick off with music by local band Messenger, followed by Kevin Hines. Also on hand will be more than 20 agencies and or nonprofits. The Kevin Hines event is Saturday, September 9th at 2 p.m. at the fairgrounds, is open to all the general public, and there is no admission fee, thanks to a grant from the Sonora Area Foundation. And there's a few flyers on the table, and I'll give Heather some flyers to give to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My friend Ed gave me this 22 Too Many shirt. He's a chaplain, and he leaves in a few days to deliver 4 memorial benches to the families of 4 soldiers who sadly have taken their own lives. This is the picture of one of those soldiers. You'd like to look at it later. I can't even imagine how hard it must be to communicate with those families after such a tragedy. Communication is really hard. How many times have you felt misunderstood? How many times have you not understood what someone else is trying to get across from you, to you? Have you ever been scared to say something? Have you ever been hurt to hear something? Sometimes it's not some monumental thing that needs to be communicated. Have you ever been so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information that needs to be communicated that it seems impossible? The devil is in the details, right? Notice how it doesn't say this detail or that detail. It's all of them. I really think he wants to trip us up with the details. And it's not lost on me that details are of particular significance in government. Multiple departments, multiple staff, members of the public, members of the board, multiple projects, multiple regulations, multiple agencies to deal with. I think that communication is quite possibly the hardest thing that humans must do, especially if you work in government. So what do you do about something that is so difficult? Well, I think you know by now where I would like to start. Heavenly Father, please be with Maui. Help all those suffering be able to communicate their needs. Help all the responders listen, Lord. Help them to have understanding of the plans put before them for fighting the fires, delivering aid, and searching for the missing. Be with the chaplains and other officials as they are forced to communicate to loved ones the last thing that anybody ever wants to hear. Father, be with my friend Ed as he travels to deliver these 4 benches to the families of these soldiers who have taken their lives. May you fill him with the right words to express how much he cares, how much we all care, and mostly, Lord, how much you care. And closer to home, Father, be with our county. Help us to be amazing communicators, both in our personal lives and as we work. Make our speech and our writing clear and concise and easy to understand. When we listen, help us to really hear and understand the information we receive, and give us the discernment to focus on the details that matter and ignore the ones that don't matter. Thank you for this honor and this opportunity to communicate with you, Lord. I know you get us, even if we don't. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Chair Half, members of the board, I'm Katie Kirkland, Sales and Marketing Director for Visit Tuolumne County. I'm beyond excited to share with you our 10-page print article in National Geographic UK. In May, Visit Tuolumne County hosted journalist Zoe Gotu and photographer Tanvir Badal to experience Tuolumne County and capture content for a National Geographic article. The article is so well written and captures the essence of Tuolumne County flawlessly. Not only did we receive a 10-page spread, but Tuolumne County was featured as a solo California destination with a call-out on the cover of the magazine. The circulation of this article is over 48,000, and the estimated value of this article is $114,000, meaning that if I were to place an ad, a 10-page ad in this article, it would cost me $114,000. This is a huge accomplishment for Visit Tuolumne County and our partners. Some of the article highlights include a guided tour with Eco Adventures Cooperative of Hetch Hetchy, a Yosemite flight tour with Yosemite Scenic Flights, an interview with Janice Nelson from Columbia Candy Kitchen. Downtown Sonora was featured with Local Collective and the Armory, and then California Gold Panning with Nugget Nick and Gold Plate Nate. So we have some print articles actually coming from the UK, so those will be a little bit easier to read because it's kind of fine print here, but we'll bring those back and share with you as well. So as always, thank you guys for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Since 1953, the Brown Act has been law in California. And the whole purpose of the Brown Act was to allow the public to come and interact with their local leaders on whatever legislative body and participate in decision-making. And it pains me to see how out of the way you go to make sure that the public does not participate. Every time you meet in this room, whether it's you want to call it a special meeting or a regular meeting, you should allow for public comment. And to not do so is shameful. I was the only member of the public at a committee meeting last week. There was a consultant there. He asked me a question, and the chair refused to allow me to answer, saying it wasn't my turn to speak. When there's an agenda item, the public has every right to speak. And they should also be allowed to speak as part of the discussion. And instead, you shunt people off and say, oh, let's hear from the public first. And you allow them a one-time opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. And then you turn and change the discussion later, and the public has no opportunity to participate in the changed discussion. And the person in charge of the Brown Act compliance in the county is our district attorney. And she has sat through meetings and watched the way people behave, and I'm kind of surprised she hasn't spoken up. Because the public is allowed to speak. They're allowed to speak on every single item that's on the agenda, which you don't allow. And public comment should be for items within the jurisdiction of your legislative body that aren't on the agenda. And we have to listen to all kinds of crap that has nothing to do with the county and is not in your jurisdiction. But people seem to think it's a free opportunity to have free speech on every opportunity. So you're very indulgent about that. But I think you should also be indulgent about the public's right to speak.
So I'd like to make a brief comment on that.
I don't
because-
think we are allowing comments we're not supposed to, according to the Brown Act. There are quite a few rules that are surrounding our Brown Act, and we're supposed to just allow the public to speak.
And the public did have the opportunity to speak, but not ask questions.
Sarah?
Correct, Chair Haft. During oral communications, the board is really not supposed to engage in any sort of dialogue, but can, for instance, say that they can speak to someone offline about something, that sort of thing. Recommend an item come back to the board, that's the type of thing, but not engage in a back and forth during this part of the session. And I do want to just make it clear for Brown Act purposes that questions and comments are the same thing. So in the future, if someone is asking to ask a question, that's included. They're allowed to do that during the time frame set for the public to speak.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Come on forward. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Annie Boyle, and I am a speech and language pathologist. I'm coming to you from Seven Bridges Speech Therapy, and we are a speech therapy company with 11 locations across the Bay Area. And I'm here to let you know that we've opened an office here in Sonora. We're really excited to be here and to get to know the community. So a little bit about us. We see clients ages 18 months and up with a variety of speech and language delays and disorders. We work closely with families and the clients to make a treatment plan that works for them as an individual. We are very excited to be here, like I said, in Sonora and get to know everyone. And we're currently offering free speech and language screenings for kids. We're located at 19524 Hillsdale Drive, Suite B. For more information, you can visit us at our website on sevenbridgestherapy.com, or you can give us a call at 209-222-6677. I've also left some flyers and business cards in the back for those here. So again, thank you so much for letting me be here today, and we're excited to hopefully see some kids.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll go ahead and close oral communications and move on to staff reports. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair Haft, members of the board. My name is Rebecca Spino, Health and Human Services Agency Director. I'm excited this morning to share that tomorrow is our second annual Community Roots Resource Fair at the Sonora Fairgrounds from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. This event was made possible by the generous support from the Sonora Area Foundation, Zero Bible Church, and the planning team from Attica, Blue Zones, Interfaith, and of course your HHSA team. At the event, there will be over 50 local providers sharing information about the many resources available in this amazing community. And an example of the resources that will be on site are services for family and children, support for our elderly and disabled, employment opportunities, resources for job seekers, food assistance, housing and energy programs, health services, information about fire preparedness, and those are just to name a few. Many of the services offered tomorrow are for households in all income levels. Inflation has impacted all of us, so everyone is welcome. To make this awesome event even better, Sierra Bible Church will be serving free tri-tip sandwiches, and Kona Ice will be serving some cold, sweet treats. In closing, the Community Roots Resource Fair is tomorrow, Sonora Fairgrounds from 3 to 6. Individuals who are not able to attend the event and need information about local resources can call 533-5719, and I placed some flyers on the back table. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. Cassandra Jenneke, your district attorney. Several things to report to you today. Some good stuff first. We have hired a new deputy district attorney who will be starting at the end of this month. We're very excited to have her on board into our misdemeanor unit. That will complete our attorneys group, which is really exciting since we've been understaffed there for a period of time. We will be returning to your board on 9/5 with an updated plan for our hours of operation, so stay tuned for that. To end with not great news, but something that I just want to preface this board and the public with. We came to you in 2021 to explain that there was a possibility that victims of crime funding would be cut at the federal level. In 2021, the explanation was that through the Trump administration, there had been a decrease in white-collar crime prosecutions, which is where a majority of the VOCA funding comes from. Fortunately in 2021, the state was able to backfill a lot of that decreased funding that we weren't going to be receiving from the feds. However, now we find ourselves in 2023 with a much different state budget outlook. And so at this time, it is very likely that our victim witness funding will be cut 30% across all of our program areas starting in the fiscal year 2024. So that will affect our elder abuse program starting in January, our Child Advocacy Center funding starting in April, and then our general victim witness of crime funding starting in October. And so I just wanted to let you all know that your DA's office, through our victim witness supervisor, and myself have been advocating at the state level to see if there's any funding to supplement. There have been a variety of machinations to try to fill that gap, but the reality is that we're looking at a very significant decrease in funding, 24 probably through 28. And so that will affect the level of service that we're able to provide. Your team is strategizing right now how we minimize the impact to our community. And so I just wanted to let you all know that that's coming, but I'll be providing some additional information to you all in an email. And then we should be finding out for certain the amount of funding that's going to be cut, hopefully by October 1. And then lastly, just to follow up on a public comment, unfortunately, I am not able to attend personally, nor is anybody from my office able to personally attend every single Brown Act meeting within Tuolumne County. However, my office does investigate Brown Act violations. We've done so several times over the last 2 years. And so if anybody thinks that there has been a Brown Act violation, that can be reported to my office by calling and speaking to our DA investigative supervisor, Jeff Snyder. Our phone number is 209-588-5450. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Dory Beats, Office of Emergency Services. I have a few updates. Just a reminder that we are in the process of updating our emergency operations plan. You can search Tuolumne County Emergency Operations Plan for an update of the latest draft, as well as a survey asking for comments on that draft. And again, of course, we're coming back to the board with that final draft next month. Also, a reminder that FEMA individual assistance is still open until September 1st. So if there's individuals or businesses that still wanted to file with FEMA under the last disaster, the one that has started in February and March of this year, you can do so by calling FEMA at 1-800-621-3362 or by going to www.disasterassistance.gov. Again, September 1st is the new deadline for filing individual assistance claims. I would like to introduce Anna Fagioli. Anna, come on up. No, you got to stand up here. You got to get used to this. Anna is the newest team member to OES. Many of you might know her. She's been with Tuolumne County a year and a half. Comes from us most recently from the rec department. And I say we're very excited. She will be filling the education and outreach role. And so we're very excited. And I tell you a little story about Anna because she has dreamed of having a job in OES. So you can't imagine how excited I am. For those that know me well, I'm very passionate about our program and the work that we do. So having somebody that is very passionate about being a part of the team means that we're gonna have a lot of fun and we're gonna do good work. So Anna will be out and about. She'll be down at the fairgrounds tomorrow, manning our booth. She's been to several events with me so far. In her first 2 weeks, but I just wanted to formally introduce Anna. So she'll be answering the phones a lot and helping us out, but please say hi to Anna. So welcome, Anna. All right.
Welcome, Anna.
So last but not least, come on, Jerry. As you know, part of our job in emergency, in the Office of Emergency Services is, of course, preparedness and education, and we really want to spend a lot of time doing that. Last year, we had a great idea. We wanted to create a video. It was our second video, actually, that we created, but we called up Jerry and Access Tuolumne and said, hey, can you help us out with creating a video? Well, we created a video, which I would like to show you today if you have not seen it, but Jerry's going to talk about the fact that this video won a national award.
Okay, so we submitted the video to the Hometown Media Awards, which is part of the Alliance of Community Media. That's a member organization, represents 3,000 PEG channels across the country, and we won. We won for the Go Bag video. Are you ready? The category Emergency Communications Access Center Professional. So there it is. And this was awarded at their annual conference at the end of June. So, and we just finished another project that we've submitted for review, hopefully, to the library, and that might be another one we submit in the future.
Put your microphone on it.
Department. Good evening, sir. My name is Nick. I'm with the Tuolumne County Fire Department. There's a wildfire nearby. We're doing mandatory evacuations. You have 10 minutes to pack a bag with personal belongings and head down the hill to a safer location. Do you have any questions for me?
10 minutes?
Yes, sir. 10 minutes.
What if this happened to you? You and your family were awakened in the middle of the night by a knock on the door and told to evacuate your home within 10 minutes. Are you prepared? I'm Dory Beats, Tuolumne County Office of Emergency Services Coordinator, and today we'd like to talk to you about the steps that you can take in order to be prepared for such an emergency. The first step is have a plan and have a go bag. What's a go bag? A go bag is a backpack of any form and size that has everything you might need or want to have in case you have to evacuate your home. We recommend that every family member has their own bag. And what does that mean? What's in those bags? Well, you can personalize it, but there's some basic things that we suggest that you have in there. Some items that we recommend that you have within the go bag. First is this pair of shoes, something sturdy. You have no idea sometimes where you're going to end up as a result of your evacuation. We also like to recommend a sweatshirt or jacket of some sort. It might get cold when you're out and about. Depending on where you end up, a pair of pants, another top, other items of clothing. Also, depending on where you end up, especially if you go to a shelter, it's nice to have a towel or a washcloth, something from home to use in the event you are evacuated. The last few years, COVID has taught us to be prepared with masks and hand sanitizers. Having that in your go bag is also very important. Always having some bottled water. Obviously, you're going to get thirsty, and you may not know when you're going to be able to get to a place that you can have that water. Personal items, whether you wear contacts, another pair of glasses, sunscreen, ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, deodorants, toothbrush, toothpaste, maybe a comb, hair ties, depending on what you need. Have this all ready to go. Medications. Having an extra supply in your bag ready to go means that you won't be fumbling around for those the night of, or you won't need to refill those some way, somehow, during an event or even through a shelter. Flashlight. Obviously, if you were evacuated in the middle of the night, this may come in handy. Cell phone charger, also really important. Most folks grab their cell phone but forget to take a charger. Speaking Speaking of chargers, having a solar-powered one is really important as well. Many of our wildfire events cause power outages, and that means you will not have electricity. So having solar-powered is important so that you can contact your family if need be. One of the other items we like is either a notebook with pens, copies of your driver's license, or all of your passwords, vaccine cards, etc. that you might need to have extra. So having that in some kind of notebook that you can put in your bag is important as well. A lot of folks like to have a hat, depending on the weather. Depending on the season, bug spray. You never know when you're going to need that. Reading book. For you or even for your kids, having some type of activity for them. It may be a long drive, and there may not be those types of items available in a shelter if you have to go to a shelter after being evacuated. So having that in your backpack will come in handy. The last item that we recommend is that you have some cash. Definitely have cash on hand within your backpack. You never know when the systems are down and you cannot access any money to pay for certain items. So having cash in your bag is a definite must. So now that you have all the essentials for your go bag, let's see if you're ready when you get the knock at the door in the middle of the night.
You have 10 minutes to pack a bag with personal belongings and head down the hill to a safer location. Do you have any questions for me?
10 minutes?
Yes, sir, 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So obviously there are some other county stars in that movie as well, and we want to thank their family for volunteering. Also CAL FIRE County Fire folks for making that, both staff and equipment. Some other individuals for supporting us through that. So we're very excited about that, and we want to thank Jerry and all of Access Tuolumne for that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, any other staff reports? Oh, I thought there was somebody getting up to do a staff report. I guess not. All right, so I'll close staff reports. And Heather, if you'd be so kind as to read the consent calendar for us.
All right. Item number 1, approving the minutes of the August 01, 2023 and August 08, 2023 meetings. Item number 2, approving an agreement between Tuolumne County Behavioral Health and A&A Health Services and LLC in an amount not to exceed $150,000 per fiscal year for a term beginning July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2025 for residential services, and authorize the county administrator to sign all related documents. This is included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Item number 3, approving a contract for our Dr. Alan Peters for psychiatry services with Tuolumne County Behavioral Health commencing on July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026, not to exceed $110,000 per fiscal year, and authorize the county administrator to sign the agreement and all future amendments included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Item number 4, approving amendment number 1 to an agreement for interim environmental health director and inspector services with California Association of Environmental Health Administrators, increasing the agreements not to exceed limit by $25,000 for a total contract cost of $80,000, and authorizing the chair to sign, included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Item number 5, waiving the reading of an ordinance amending Title 15 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code by repealing and replacing Section 15-0.04.020E and 15.040.020F of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code and adding Sections 15.04.030 G through R regarding local amendments to the California Building Code, Appendix P, and the California Residential Code, Appendix AZ, and scheduling adoption of the ordinance on September 5th, 2023. Notice of exemption pursuant to Section 15061B3 of the state CEQA guidelines. Item number 6, approving the Child Health and Disability Prevention CHDP program annual certification statements required by the Department of Healthcare Services, DHCS, for fiscal year 2023-24 and authorizing the board chair to sign. Item number 7, approving contract amendment number 2 with California Forensic Medical Group, CFMG, for jail inmate and detained youth medical services at a base rate amount not to exceed $1,503,648 for the third contract year from August 1, 2023 through July 31, 2024, and authorizing the county administrator to sign all related documents included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Item number 8, approving the reappointment of Valerie Shoemake to the Tuolumne County Behavioral Health Board with a term to expire on July 31st, 2026. Item number 9, accepting unanticipated revenue and increasing appropriations from Prepare California Jumpstart Program for the first of 5 years in the amount of $138,973 to fund an administrative 1-2 senior position to the Office of Emergency Services, fiscal year 23-24 budget, and adopt Resolution 74-23, authorizing the county administrator to sign any agreements, modifications, and all related contracts and documents for fifth vote required. Item number 10, adopting Resolution 75-23, authorizing the Tuolumne County Fire Department to accept the California Fire Foundation 2023 Wildfire Safety and Preparedness Grant in the amount of $15,000, recognizing unanticipated revenue and increasing appropriations in the fire fund by the same amount, and authorizing the county administrator to sign all related documents for fifth vote required. And last, we have item 11, awarding a contract in the amount of $1,652,000 to American Pavement Systems, Inc. to perform the work as shown in the plans and bid book for contract number 1722, Tuolumne Road Surface Treatment Project, and authorizing the chair to sign, included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
All right, take a breath. So my first question to the board members is, does anyone want to pull an item on the consent? Seeing none, does anybody have comments they'd like to make? Did you say? Okay, go ahead. Supervisor Kirk.
Well, I will say this consent calendar was very packed, and I had a lot of questions, so I just want the public to know a lot of questions are done behind the scenes so that we don't spend hours talking about consent stuff and dragging that down. So thank you, staff, for getting back to me. But I can't go without saying number 11, thank you. Anytime there's road things on the agenda, I try and speak to them. $1.6 million for Tuolumne Road, Mono Way up to the casino. That's an agreement that we have, a revenue sharing agreement that we have with the casino to keep that PCI index up. So I'm glad to see that on here and to see it get done. So thank you, staff, for working on that.
Supervisor Campbell.
Yeah, I was going to repeat what Supervisor Kirk said on item 11. Just happy to see that we're doing work on Tuolumne Road.
And Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, just two brief comments. One on consent number 8, Valerie Shoemake, welcoming her to, be, coming as a reappointment on the Behavioral Health Board. And my second item was number 10, just acknowledging Tuolumne County Fire Department Andy Murphy in specific for his efforts in going after grants. This one is not a large grant, but every one makes a huge difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Brandon, did you have any comments? Okay, I'll take it to the public then. Are there comments on anything on the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you. I would like some more information on item number 2. I didn't find the memo really clear, and I know there was some money coming down. I can't remember if it was a grant or whatever, for those who were declared incompetent to stand trial, and I thought this was regarding that, but I'd like some information on that because I didn't think the memo was clear. And then regarding number 8 with Valerie Shoemake, she was the first person from Adventist Health that was willing to be on the Behavioral Health Board, and I thought that was great. And she actually is the only one of the Behavioral Health Board who ever attended a funeral with me for a suicide victim, so I was very impressed with that. But she hasn't been at the last 3 meetings, so that concerns me a little bit because they've had trouble getting a quorum.
So there was a request to get more information on item number 2. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
would somebody from Behavioral Health like to step forward and give us the rundown?
Good morning. Could you clarify the question for me? Okay.
And can you restate what she said for everybody?
I believe I understand the question is, where is the facility and what type of services will the funds be covering? AA Health Services is located in Alameda County, San Pablo to be exact. They are an organization that specializes in residential services for individuals that are involved in the forensic system. This is a resource that we are acquiring through the funding from our Incompetent to Stand trial contract with the Department of State Hospitals. This is a necessary resource in order to provide the necessary housing and or services for individuals that fit the Incompetent to Stand trial program that Behavioral Health runs in partnership with the court system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the public on our consent calendar here? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
So it was moved by Supervisor Brandon and seconded by Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item under Public Works, item number 12.
Item number 12, consideration of 1, providing staff direction whether to award the project prior to approval of FEMA funding. 2, finding the deviation related to the Croker Inc. bid is immaterial and waiving the deviation. And 3, awarding a contract in the amount of $387,033 to Croker Inc. to perform the work as shown in the plans and bid book for contract number 1769B, Old Priest Grade Storm Damage Repair Project, and authorizing the chair to sign, included in the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Blossom Scott Heim, Supervising Engineer with your Public Works Department. As we all know, in late 22 and early 2023, we were hit by a series of prolonged storm events, which caused damage to the county's infrastructure. We had at least 38 locations damaged, including Tuolumne Road North, Old Priest Grade, Wards Ferry Road, Buchanan Road, Italian Bar Road, Yankee Hill, and Lava Road. We have been working along with our consultants daily on these projects behind the scenes. On May 16th, your board delegated authority to the Public Works Director to issue a call for bids for the Old Priest Grade Storm Damage Repair Project, number 1769B, and bids were due on August 3rd, 2 p.m. We received 2 bids, Croker Inc. out of Fresno and R. Sutton Enterprises out of Vallecito, California. The engineer's estimate for the project was $380,000, and because the low bid was within 1% of that, we did not perform a bid analysis. County Council reviewed the bids submitted by Croker and noted that they failed to insert bidders' initials acknowledging receipt of addendum number 1. However, they did acknowledge the addendum online in the OpenGov system and included a copy of the addendum with their bid. The attached memo from County Council further explains this deviation and that your board may determine that this is an immaterial deviation and waive the same. The project is currently budgeted in the fiscal year 23-24 budget in the Public Works 22-23 Storms Road Capital Fund with a local match contribution of 6.25% coming from the general fund. We have submitted the damage claim to FEMA and they inspected the site on August 7th. However, the project is not guaranteed funding yet. Though we follow all FEMA guidelines during project development and procurement, we are not guaranteed reimbursement until we receive FEMA's approval of the project. The funds currently would be coming out of the road fund and would not be available for other projects if we don't receive reimbursement. We are recommending that you provide staff direction on whether to award the project prior to FEMA approval, find that the deviation in the Croker bid is immaterial and waive the deviation, and award the contract in the amount of $387,033 to Croker Inc. to perform the work. Please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, well, we'll start with that. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Brandon.
Kick it off. Thanks, Blossom. I just wanted to ask if it's unusual at a point like this to not have the reimbursement. Are we pretty confident that that is going to come in? If we didn't do it today, when would we expect to hear from FEMA? The kind of questions around the timing and the notice.
I can't speak to the timing as much. In the past, we've generally waited for approval. Although in 2019, we did go ahead with the repair because the FEMA picked it up after the fact, and we were ultimately reimbursed. But in 2017 and 18, we waited until we had approval before beginning projects.
Okay. And so we don't know necessarily if it's unusual there, but have we had projects we expected to be FEMA reimbursed or FEMA to fund the repairs of that they ended up not coming through on?
We have not.
Okay.
Good question. Did you have any other questions, Supervisor Kirk?
No, that was going to be
Okay.
my question. So
all right.
That last one.
Any other questions? Supervisor
Well,
Goldenberg?
I was in the same line of thought here that, wondering about if we had any anticipated date when FEMA, might make a decision, and can we reach out to them and ask that question, right? I know when we put in a request, right? But can we reach out to them and ask? And I see Dory Beats coming up from OES. Yep.
So obviously we're working directly in both the storms, and this the second storm, the 4699, we actually pushed because of the urgency issue for evacuations for them to do the site inspections. So their direction to us is to go forward with the repairs. So as a project, because they understand the emergency or the urgency of the emergency situation on that. So we have not been given any disapproval those projects that they speak of are in the system for both of the storms and have been identified. They've done site inspections now for both storms for our road infrastructure. Blossom was out with their inspectors on both occasions. And so there hasn't been any indication that we would not be approved for that. But again, it is a formal process that we have to go through. We have pushed, as you know, in the second storm, multiple counties are dealing with disaster recovery, but we have very good FEMA representative teams that understood the urgency of it and agreed to push our site inspection forward and earlier than what we would normally see. So that, to me, is a good indication that they're getting that process through for approval. So,
very, very good. Thanks for your explanation.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't have that information. That's awesome. So that's concludes all the questions we have from the board, so we'll bring it to the audience. If there's anybody here that would like to get up and speak on behalf of this agenda item, it's your time to come forward. Good morning.
So I'll just be brief. I'll just state the obvious. Fire season is coming, and it would be nice to have, well, it's not so much an alternative route, but a backup to the existing route if we did have to have an evacuation. That's, the convenience level for Groveland residents is one thing, but the fact that we have no, we only at this point have one real evacuation to the west. I guess you could take Priest Coulterville Road, but that isn't going to take a lot of capacity. So that's all.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, I'll bring it back to the board for comments, and if there are none, I'd like to make the motion.
Go for it. I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is that we find the deviation to be immaterial, and that we are willing to move ahead before we get the FEMA funding, and to award the contract to the lowest bidder in the amount of $387,033 to Croker Inc. to perform the work shown in the plans, which authorizes the chair to sign. Did I get it all? Okay. And so I think it was already seconded. So Supervisor Half moved and Supervisor Campbell seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carries 5-0. Let's take a short break, a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 2 after 10. And we're going to resume the meeting, starting with item number 13. Heather, would you please read that?
Item number 13, consideration of approving class specification changes, new class specifications, assignment of bargaining units, reclassifications, new allocated positions, associated pay rate, and elimination of allocated positions.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, looking around.
Good morning, Board. Karen McEdigan, Deputy County Administrator, overseeing HR, here with Deborah Showman, Human Resources Manager. So on June 6th, the County Administrative Office presented you with its budget that included a number of personnel changes. Those changes included, similar to today, the addition of positions, the elimination of positions, changes to job descriptions, and the addition of pay rates and bargaining units to those newly assigned positions. As you know, all the changes regarding employment are required to go through the meet and confer process, and at the time of the budget presentation, not all of those processes had been completed. So what you are seeing here before you today are the changes that were accounted for in the budget. These are just have finally completed the meet and confer process. So none of this information is new. There will be no budget action item today. They were accounted for in the budget, just to reiterate. You were given amended versions of this memo this morning. There were a couple of errors on it, unfortunately, after it was printed. I do want to highlight those for you right now. Health and Human Services had pointed out to us that on their reclassification, public health was erroneously listed as a cost center when it should have been the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children. And we also had listed a 0.8 allocation of a position that should have been a 1.0 FTE. Other changes on page 4. The ambulance billing technician should have read that it was in the ambulance cost center and it was erroneously reported as social services. And again, with the medical records and billing tech, that should have been assigned to behavioral health and it was written as social services. Otherwise, the majority of these changes, I know there are significant volume of changes. Primarily, these are to increase the flexibility in the department. So things like adding a flexibly staffed series so that an employee can go from a 1 to a 2 to a senior level, which allows us to retain more staff. It allows them to promote more easily. There is nothing in these changes, as I said, that require a budget action. To comply with the Brown Act, I do need to highlight a couple of other changes. I need to specifically call your attention to the salary ranges of department head level positions. The Community Development Director's salary would change, should your board approve, from a range of $57.9303 to $70.4146 per hour. That would be changed to $63.7232 through a range of $77.4560 per hour. The county council's salary would change from a range of $73.5998 per hour to $89.4610 per hour to a range of $79.4877 through $96.6178 per hour. The animal control director's salary has a range of $41.6816 to $50.6643 per hour, and the Director of Library and Recreation Services has a range of $41.4657 to $50.6643 per hour. As I mentioned, Deborah Showman, the Human Resources Manager who worked directly with the departments on these needed changes and the bargaining units, is here to answer any specific questions you may have on the personnel changes. But once again, they are not new.
Okay, any questions? Supervisor Kirk.
I don't know if it's in the memo anywhere. I think my only question, and it may not be for you, but more for administration, was do we know what the total cost for the changes was, the net or the? I know we did it during budget, but I was just curious.
Unfortunately, because these were all included in the budget that your board passed on June 20th, I don't have that defined right now.
But during budget, was it in there? Do we have that conversation?
I don't remember. It was included in budget. It's part of balancing the budget.
Right.
I don't think that we
when we give the personnel actions, many times the personnel action sheet will tell you the cost of those changes, but then all of that gets incorporated into the budget as a whole in each of those cost centers. We can get you that information. We would just need some time to go through.
My main thing was I just want to make sure I wasn't missing it in here, like if it was spelled out somewhere. And
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yep. Thank you for, presenting and just confirming, all of this was within budget, but also that any discussions with the unions were good with that?
Yes. All of the meet and confer requirements have been met. All of these items were accounted for and discussed in the budget with the exception of the Community Development Director salary adjustment and County Council salary adjustment. Those were the only two that were not previously discussed in the budget.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? What were those last three that weren't discussion?
The adjustment to the Community Development Director's salary and County Council salary were the only two not previously approved in the budget.
I want to make sure I didn't miss. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. And this is just to clarify for folks that may not be aware how this works. So what we're approving here today is the positions that we created or changed during the budget process. So once these are approved, or if they're approved, the departments can start hiring these positions, or is there another step?
That's correct. For any that are new, we would they would be able to run the recruitment. Yes.
Okay, so meet and confer is done. Now the departments are just waiting on us.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I will take it to the public to see if there are any comments.
I could scream it. No.
We'll get you.
Good morning, Board. Cassandra Jenneke, your District Attorney. I am so incredibly grateful for the work that your Human Resources Department did. This was a long meet and confer process that took months and months, and so I very much appreciate their leadership through that process. It's resulted in over 300 pages of changes that really moved towards improving organizational flow, adding department heads, creating executive level support, adding flexibility to our flexibly staffed positions. But there is one area that I, as a leader within the organization, take small issue with, and that's with the concept of equity. So if you do a control find search through this memo, there are 3 times that the word equity is mentioned. There are 3 equity adjustments that your board is approving today. One of those is due to compaction, and the other 2 are not explained. And your department heads have spoken at least more than once, I want to say several times, but at least more than once, about the organization's need for a compensation study. And I believe that our county administrative officer has talked to you all also about the CAO's position of needing a compensation study. I'm not here to represent her wishes. I'm not here to represent the wishes of the CAO's office. I don't even know if Ms. Riggs knew that I was going to make any statements about this today until today. But we do studies about a lot of things. We do studies about space needs, financing new buildings, about the financing of our airports, and I would offer to you that a compensation study is just as important as those types of studies. You have made micro equity adjustments throughout the multiple rounds of bargainings that you've engaged in, and those equity adjustments have very much benefited our organization as a whole. I truly believe that those adjustments you've made have increased our ability to hire sheriff's deputies. I believe that those types of equity adjustments benefit the organization as a whole. But by doing those micro adjustments, only certain positions within the organization benefit. And by continuing to do these adjustments here, there, everywhere, but not looking at it across the organization as a whole, what we do is we create an equity. we build that into the system. And we also build a negative perception of those changes. Because if those changes are not publicly explained and addressed, that can breed a lack of trust and resentment. Now, I don't offer you this opinion or perspective thinking that I need a market adjustment. I don't think that I do. I think I'm a well-paid employee, and I'm very grateful for the compensation that I receive. But my staff certainly do. Other staff within the organization certainly do. And as we walk into uncertain budgetary times, I would offer to you that a compensation study would orient us as a group towards correcting any market or internal inequity issues related to employee compensation, while also creating greater transparency and allowing this board to prioritize how and where it spends its money. As I said, I'm incredibly grateful to the work of HR. I'm incredibly grateful to the work of this board. This isn't offered as a criticism, but rather as an invitation to help us as leaders within the organization best serve the people who provide services to Tuolumne County. Thank you.
So I'm going to answer, and I'm going to ask our CAO to answer, but in brief, we have not done a survey, and the board has. That's not part of our charge right now to do any kind of a survey. It's not on the agenda. But there were some gross way out salaries. So rather, there are going to be inequities. And without doing some kind of a survey, we're not going to be able to address them all. But in responding to doing a survey, we also have to have the funding to be able to back up, what the funding survey results are. And right now, we're not really in that position. I don't feel, as a board, I don't feel our board feels that we're in that position. But I have asked CAO Riggs to respond to your question directly.
Right, thank you. So I had asked, once budget was done, to do a compensation study for our department heads, and Deb Shulman did that for us. And the reason is I had, there was a couple that, not overall, but we've had a lot of questions about compensation. So we do have an internal study that was not done by an external source that reflected, and we used the counties that we've negotiated with all of our comparisons. What we had was 2 department heads who were out more than all of the rest. Everyone ranged from anywhere from being at market to as much as 38% below market. Your board has taken action to bring the 2 who were as much as 38% below market and 25% below market into line more with where the others are, which ranges around 15 to 20% below market. So these 2 adjustments, don't bring them to market anywhere near, still leaves one 20 to 30% out, and it leaves the other one 15% out, which is about average with the rest of your department heads.
Thank you. Time for board comments. Supervisor Goldenberg.
So I'm in favor of making adjustments. I clearly can see that there's some inequities with a couple of department heads, community development, looking at county council, and where we would go with that. I am also concerned, and it's not listed here, is that we look at probation, Dan Hawks, because I believe that there's a lag, there as well. Would like to move forward, where we can. I think it's important, to do so. But I think we need to expand this discussion.
Yeah, and I respect that position, Supervisor Goldenberg. It's part of the reason for my question earlier was to illustrate the fact that we have a lot of, I think, really positive changes in the plan before us right now, and I feel that we're the ones in the way right now of proceeding with some of these changes that I think are very worthwhile, and so I wouldn't want to hold that up anymore. I'm definitely, I think that as we go along, we will need to make changes in future budgets or at mid-year or at various other stages or opportunities for that. And I'm very eager and willing to have that conversation at that time. But I'm in favor of the allocated positions as are listed in the staff memo and not opening that up again. And I would also like to kind of, I think I've talked about this a fair amount about compensation studies, and I'm not a very big fan of them as what I've seen in the past. You basically, what we're doing is we're hiring a contractor to do a study, and one of the issues that I think I hear about negatively from the community is that the county spends too much money on studies that don't go anywhere. And in my view, a compensation study is basically to pay a contractor. I think we did get an estimate. It was something like $500,000. Might be able to find somebody cheaper, but at the very least, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a study that's going to give us an answer that we already know, which is that the vast majority of our employees are underpaid. And we want to change that, and we're working to change that, but we already know that there's an issue, and so I'm not a big fan of conducting a study to tell us that there's an issue. So that's kind of where I stand on those two issues. I do think that a lot of work has gone into this at this point, and it's not perfect, and we don't shore up every issue that we have, but largely, to the work that CEO Riggs, Karen McGettigan and Deb that you've put into this, I really appreciate it, and I think that we need to get going. So,
Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. I wanted to agree with Supervisor Campbell. I think that really outlines my thoughts too on looking at the compensation study. I think we've been trying to, within our means, be able to do the best we can to address these equity issues, support our staff. There's a lot of conversations that happen around that without having to have, I think, the updated document. But I get the sticker shock too. I see $500,000 to buy paper when we know that the root issue is we don't have the resources to compensate everybody to the value that they bring to this organization. And we have some amazing individuals that work in the county, and I wish we could have them at market and at median. And until we're able to either, over the long run, hopefully the costs don't continue to just keep going up, but we're seeing some of the economic development pay off in spades, or we see some type of a revenue measure. I think we're trying to do the best that we can, and I would say that probably everybody up here has a different idea of exactly what they, I mean, this is always going to be a product and in a positive way of compromise, but I think everybody up here also is united in trying to address that issue. And when issues are brought forward to us to do what we can with it. So I'm happy that we're doing this to try and make it a little better with a new organization. And I did want to ask one thing in the future too. Would be helpful with the positions to, I know we went through this with budget, but for example, with a reclassification, the reason why, not just that, but it's because they're managing someone or because of this. That's just helpful to it. But we have gone over these positions before, so thank you for all the work put into this, and I do hope we get to that point. As an organization, I mean, we're nothing without the people in it, and that's not a platitude. I mean, literally, nothing would function at all, and we've struggled with a really high vacancy rate. We have to address that, but we don't have the tools to address it right now, and we're going to have to figure that out collectively. So,
thank you. Supervisor Kirk.
Trying to figure out what to say, because no matter what you say, you offend somebody when you're in this shoe. I get staff's view because of where I work when I'm not here. I'm out of adjustment by almost 30% in my line of work. And it's frustrating when you see people at the top of the chain. We talk about we're not going to do studies, but then we individually hand out raises certain, departments within the organization, and that's frustrating. But also from this chair, when you look at, there's conversations and there's information that's not always remembered. Like I know for one of the raises we gave, well, that individual forfeited a raise, I think once or twice in a row. So while some of the organization feels upset that they're not getting a bump, there's also individuals who forfeited a bump, and now it's gone too long. And we're fixing it. So what I'm trying to say is there's always two sides to the story. There's always information. I don't like the fact that we're not going to do comp studies, but then we'll give raises. But we also have certain positions that if employees were to move on from at the top of the level, they're very hard to recruit, very hard to retain. And then if you do lose those individuals, you're going to end up bringing that what was 30% out of line, instead of bringing it from 30 to 15, you're going to have to bring it all the way down to 0 to recruit. So we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. But I will say we did just go through bargaining. We did just go through this process this last year. We did give out, I think, in the DA's office between 5 and 8%. So it's not like we haven't been moving the needle. I know the needle needs to move more, but at the end of the day, it comes down to can we afford it. And so I get it. But a lot of work has gone into this. Deborah, thank you. I know you spent a lot of time on this, and I appreciate your work on this. And, I did have a lot of questions. I didn't like that we kind of had to piecemeal it because of budget, and then we had to wait for things to meet and confer, and then it's coming back this way. I get it, maybe in the public perspective it feels a little off, but once I understood it a little better and was reminded of some of those conversations, it made more sense. So I do support this as it is. I was talking about comp studies. I don't want to spend $500,000 of comp study because I know that we're behind, but I think if we could figure out a way, I don't even know if we could figure out a way. We know we're behind, but when certain positions don't take raises for long enough and we're just 30, 40% out, and it's somebody who's taken 20 years to get to that position, it's not easy to recruit and fix that and fill that. And it doesn't mean people who are lower in the chain aren't as critical, aren't as needed, because that's where a lot of the work hits the ground. But it's just really hard to recruit at some of these other positions, and that's kind of the way I view it. And it's unfortunate, but hopefully a little bit of what I said made sense to the organization. I appreciate you guys. The more and more I'm here, the more and more I realize how we're just lacking. Let me give one example, and then I'll shut up. In our public works department, for some reason, I thought we had lots of engineers. I don't know why. I remember seeing a chart, and then I was reminded when North Tuolumne Road was closed that we literally have, I think it's one engineer who's got less than a year of experience. I know another engineer who's newer, been around for a little bit. And then we have Blossom and we have Kim. Blossom's supposed to be overseeing projects, overseeing the engineers who are doing the projects, kind of checking off. Mid-level manager, and then you got Kim. Well, we only have those four, and really one or two doing the work, but Kim and Blossom are getting dragged into work that engineers should be doing, not that managers and department heads should be doing. So our people are getting crushed, and I get it. There's so much work. There's not enough. There's a lot of entry people, but the mid-level managers you can't find anywhere in the state, whether it's in public works, whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in CDD. Like the whole middle management thing is so hard to recruit for. And then people on the upper echelon are basically phasing out, moving on, retiring. So it's a tough thing. Last thing I want to end it on is when it comes to working in Tuolumne County, we are discussing, I was talking to Tracy about this yesterday, where's our telecommute policy that we've been working on for the last year and a half. It should be coming soon, but we're trying to figure out ways that's more attractive for people to work here. So I'm looking forward to that telecommute policy maybe coming before the board soon, and see if there's ways that we can't, maybe money's not everything, but maybe there's other ways that we can make it a better place to work. So, all right. Thank you, guys.
Well, I want to thank my colleagues for all their comments. I feel pretty similarly. It's hard. It's hard to be equitable. Even if we had the funding to do the comp study, in years past when we've gone that route, it was 4 years, 5 years after that study was done before we could even had the money to do anything about it, and it didn't bring everybody up to being whole. So I don't know if there is a blanket equitable solution. I don't. We really do the best we can. It's like a mom having to choose between her children. You know, Sophie's choice almost. Don't want to go there. We want to be able to give our employees, our staff, what they are due to the best that we can. I will say, and I hope this doesn't come across wrong, the furthest category out in the study that was, the little study that was done in-house, were the supervisors. They were almost 50% out. We're not up here recommending salary increases for us. We just want you to know that we feel you and we'll do the very best we can. What that looks like in the future, a lot depends on funding. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion.
So I'll move to approve the item class specification changes as identified in the agenda, and look for a second.
I will second.
All right. It was moved by Supervisor Goldenberg and seconded by Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for all the work that you've done to make that happen. All right, Heather, which one are we on? All right. Would you please read that one?
Item number 14, consideration of approving joint letters of response to the 2022-23 grand jury report on the Tuolumne County airports, Tuolumne County elections, Tuolumne County Dumbacher Detention Center, and Motherlode Regional Juvenile Detention Facility.
Okay, good morning. Tracy Riggs, County Administrative Office.
Are you on?
My mic is on.
Okay.
Okay, maybe it's just not close enough. So this item today before you is for a response to the grand jury, which is for, as outlined in the memos there, elections, the jail, juvenile hall, and airports. As we have done over the last 4 years and continuing this year is we have worked with your department heads, both appointed and elected, to develop a joint response amongst the county as a whole. So what you have before you is that response. I want to make sure you know that we have worked with your sheriff, your chief probation officer, auditor controller, assessor, recorder, tax collector. Who am I missing? Is there anyone there? I think that might be, Kim McFarland. And we have all worked together to draft this response, and we are asking that your board would approve it. This falls within the 60-day guideline that the elected officials must respond outside of the board. And so we would, if and when your board approves this, we will get this submitted to Judge Krieg immediately. If you have any questions, your department heads are here as well to answer those.
All right, questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll take it to the public. Are there any public comments on the grand jury reports? Yes.
I just want to say thank you that the tone of this one was certainly not equivalent to what it was last year. And I thought that it also was a lot more accommodating and willing to work with some of the grand jury issues, which I also appreciated.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, bring it back to the board for final comments. Yes. Supervisor Campbell.
Yeah, no, I absolutely echo the comments of the member of the public. I think that there have been years in the past when there's been a somewhat antagonistic relationship between the county and the grand jury, and I think that's unfortunate. But this year, I think the grand jury pointed out some key issues that we should be addressing and that we could do better. And I really want to applaud our CAO, Tracy Riggs, and her team that drafted the response, because I thought it was very measured and very much the way I felt when I was reading some of the comments from the grand jury that, yeah, we can do better in some places, particularly with the airports. I think they address some pretty critical areas that we do need to address, and in many of the instances of specific issues that were raised by the grand jury, I think even before we drafted the response, the county was already on it and already addressing some of those critical issues. So I think in general we're doing a much better job responding, taking criticism to heart as an organization and responding to that in a way that if there truly is a problem, not giving excuses, not saying that you're wrong for criticizing us, but saying, yeah, that's a problem. This is what we're doing about it. And I thought that was kind of the tone of our response to the grand jury in this particular case. And I think our staff should be applauded for that.
Thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
I concur with Supervisor Campbell's comments entirely. When we're looking at the airports, there's multifaceted considerations that we have. Obviously with Columbia, with the firefighting resources and making sure that, that we're able to maintain that airport, to that standard for the availability of that. Also look into, Pine Mountain Lake, the airport, there, it's very important that we take a serious look at it because I think we're quite honestly missing out on some opportunities for FAA funding, that might be able to increase, that. So anyways, I'm supportive of, this discussion.
Thank you. Supervisor Brandon.
Thank you. Carol stole my thunder. Agree with my colleagues. I really like the tone and how this approached it. I think being up here and having a responsibility for the county does not mean we think everything is perfect and nothing needs to change. Actually, much the opposite of why you end up trying to be in this position. And I think that's what that recognizes, saying there are areas that need improvement. We know that the airports, as an example, we have a analysis going out right now, trying to find grant funding, trying to find revenue sources, trying to invest back in that. So I felt like there was a lot of synergy with what they were saying and what we would like to see. So really well done, staff, and well done in writing that. I think that's how all of our grand jury responses should look in the future.
Supervisor Kirk.
Well, ditto what Supervisor Campbell said, and I should have asked this during questions, Tracy, but school safety to me is a huge concern, obviously having kids and just all that stuff. There was some reports about safety. That's something that the board doesn't address, correct? That's something that the superintendent of schools will report on later at a future date?
Correct. Your board is only required that you would submit responses on anything you have authority over.
Right.
But if your board is interested in those, they will also be posted along with the others once they're submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and I just have a couple of comments, one for each report. For the airport's grand jury report, I just wanted to reiterate what I've told the board in the past. Thank you very much for authorizing that funding for that comprehensive study. And as you noticed in the report, they referred to it a lot, and it's going to answer a lot of the questions that we have and hopefully give us some great suggestions for how to run both of our airports better. For the report on the juvenile facility, you guys are stellar. You're doing very well. About the worst thing that they could say was that you don't advertise your all the things that you do well enough to let the community know. So if that's the worst thing they could say, you must be doing very well, and we know you're doing very well. And yeah. I just wanted to point it out because it's something that I think a lot of our departments can do better, advertise their wins and their strengths. We don't do in the county. We just don't do a very good job of that. So those are my comments. And Do we need to approve this? Is that what we need to do for the chair to sign? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve the joint letters of response to the 2022-23 grand jury report on Tuolumne County Airports, elections, juvenile detention center, and Motherlode Regional Detention Facility.
I'll second.
Okay, it was moved by Supervisor Campbell and seconded by Supervisor Goldenberg. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, on to number 15.
Item number 15, consideration of approving the Stanislaus Landscape Fuels Treatment Stewardship Supplemental Project Agreement in the amount of $3,700,000 with the Stanislaus National Forest, authorizing the county administrator to sign this agreement, all modifications and all related contracts and documents, and recognizing unanticipated revenue in the amount of $3,700,000 in the Master Stewardship Agreement Cost Center, and increasing appropriations by the same amount. 4/5 vote required.
Good morning.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Katie Henry. I'm the administrative analyst that oversees the day-to-day operations of the Master Stewardship Agreement that the county has with the Forest Service on behalf of YSS. I'm very excited to bring this news to you today. Since this astonishing partnership and the fantastic community support, we've made incredible progress in the health of our forests to protect the future health and resiliency of the surrounding community and the landscape. We have received some additional funding from the Stanislaus National Forest to finish implementing the final phase for the initial fuel break construction on Cerro. If you haven't made your way up the Highway 108 corridor to see the amazing work underway, I highly suggest it. We have about 3,000 acres of fuel breaks that are being implemented, with 2,300 of those complete. We have been doing a lot of prep work for other projects that go on in the forest, as prescribed burning and timber sales. We are finishing up implementing about 20,000 acres of botanical surveys and about 49 miles of land boundary surveys and about 6,000 acres of archaeological surveys for Cerro 2.0. With this funding, it'll go into a SPA, which is a supplemental project agreement, specifically a new SPA, the Stanislaus Landscape Fuels Treatment. And this funding comes from the Inflation Reduction Act approved in August of 2022. They allocated some funding to protect 1.8 million acres of National Forest System lands from wildfire and restore an additional 550,000 acres of federal land. To date, the MSA has received in total about $61 million. 442 of that has been for the Bureau of Land Management lands. The rest is on Stanislaus National Forest. Our BLM project Yankee Hill is underway. And having these SPAs allow us flexibility to accept this funds more quickly, and we're anticipating further funding for Cerro 2.0, which is under development, which would be allocated into this SPA, which I believe is to be a substantial amount. So, staff recommends your board to approve the Stanislaus Landscape Fuels Treatment Stewardship Supplemental Project Agreement in the amount of $3.7 million with the Stanislaus National Forest. Authorize the county administrator to sign this agreement, all modifications and all related contracts and documents, and recognize an unanticipated revenue in the amount of $3.7 in the Master Stewardship Agreement Cost Center, and increase appropriations by the same amount.
Thank you, Katie. We love that unanticipated revenue. Questions from our board? Nope. Seeing none, we'll take it to the public to see if they have any public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for comments. Supervisor Kirk.
You sit up here sometimes and you just get used to board meetings and standard business, but like I hope Tuolumne County is paying attention, because we got phase 2 coming and then there's phase 3. We can't keep up with the amount of money. Well, we can and we will, but we have so much money coming to Tuolumne County when it comes to forest health. And this master stewardship has just opened up the doors and the relationships that we have and everything. And again, this board is standing on the shoulders of people before us who put this thing together. And now it's just our job to maintain it. And it's awesome. It's kicking butt. I'm thankful for everybody involved with it. And, you know, just remind the community, we're literally building, if you look at Cerro If you look at Cerro 2.0, Cerro 3 that's coming, if you look at the rim fire, if you look at all the work that all the organizations in this community are doing, we're literally building a horseshoe around our community to keep from a mega fire devastating us. So it's incredible, and we should seriously just like pack up and go home today, because this is like a great way to end the meeting, but we're not. But this is awesome. So thank you guys. Thank you to all our partners, and just thank you.
Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. I think we get a lot of people maybe online or do a comment and they're like, well, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do a horseshoe around the community? You know, it's coming from the National Forest, so why don't we protect it? It's like, well, we are. Well, what about home hardening? Well, we've got a grant for millions, tens of millions, to do 500 different homes of home hardening and clearance on a lot of lands. We have positions coming in, grant funded. And I would agree that a lot of this work has been started by the past board and the past board and for a very long time. Especially since the rim fire. But in coming to this board too, the action that we've taken to be able to empower good people on our staff to go work on this, to invest in a full-time OES, to have several grant-funded positions under that, to support our MSA funded positions as well. I think we are on the cutting edge of the state, and I couldn't agree more with Supervisor Kirk. I think people need to know about this, because I had a property owner in the Columbia area, I will not name names. They have a property that's next to them and say, you know, this is the highest priority. You got to clear this property. I wish I was able to convince them that there is good work happening, because we've expanded fire service. We've got 120,000 acres being treated, all of, 500 homes, the My Sierra Wood stuff. We're doing in 2.5 years, at least for me, an amazing amount of work, and I know we were doing a lot before as well. So anyway, really well done. Thank you to our staff. I mean, $3.7 million is no small amount, and I think we are lucky that we haven't had a catastrophic wildfire. I think that is a component of it 100%. We're also very good at emergency response, and we're also very good at trying to mitigate that risk. I think there is a reason why we haven't had, since the rim fire, something else catastrophic happen. And it's projects like this that are protecting people. We don't always get kudos for the fires that you stop or that don't end up happening. And I wish we did, because it's around the state, and it makes me feel safer, and I think people should feel safer.
Thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, so definitely the comment, $3.7 million here is huge. Moving forward on the effort, and as Supervisor Brandon mentioned, defensible space, we got a $10 million grant to work on that. Then we look at the hardening, $20 million grant. And these are multi-year, grants. All of these efforts, to provide the fuel breaks and intermingling, these other areas is huge. And I just hope that at some point we'll get the insurance industry to recognize everything that we're doing here in the county and lower the damn premiums, because it's just killing, our people here locally. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair, and I absolutely echo my colleagues' comments about the insurance industry and whether or not all these millions are having an impact in that area. But in the most important critical area, which is protecting our communities, I think they're having a significant impact. And what we are seeing with these projects, and I think Supervisors Kirk and Brandon kind of illustrated that well, that maybe these things aren't as well known or understood in the community, but what you're seeing is a physical expression of the lessons we've learned from the mega fires that we've seen in California in the past 10 years. Almost to the day. Next week it'll be 10 years to the day from the rim fire. And so we had two choices at that time. We could say that it's up to fate, it's the luck of the draw where a lightning strike happens or where someone leaves an unmaintained fire pit or where there's an arsonist out there. These things are out of our control. It's nature. Or we could take the option to say that we, as a society, have allowed our forests to get to a state that is not natural, that is not normal, and that is overloaded with fuels. And because we, as a society, have created this situation, it's our responsibility to do something about it. And that's exactly what you're seeing with these $1 million grants that are related to specific areas and specific regions of our county with specific types of treatments. And it is kind of, I find it fascinating. I think a lot of us up here find it fascinating, but it can get kind of confusing for somebody that's not familiar with how the difference between machine-driven mastication or somebody out there with loppers cutting down brush. These are different types of treatments for different purposes, but all it means is that we're returning the forest to what it naturally would be in 200 years ago, pre-gold rush era type forest situation where your fires do happen, but where they are smaller, they are more scattered, and the temperature of the fires is much less, and it doesn't get into the canopy. Those are the fires that have been destroying our forests. They've been destroying our communities, and so that's where we're targeting. And then Supervisor Brandon illustrated perfectly that there's no one silver bullet that's going to resolve this as an issue. Forest management is absolutely a large component of it, but it's also fire preparedness. It's also home hardening. It's also making sure that you know your neighbors and that you know the roads that you're going to take if there's an evacuation ahead of time, so you don't have to make those connections in the middle of an emergency. So I think on all fronts that we're making a lot of progress in Tuolumne County. There's certainly a lot more that we could be doing, but I think we have the best team in the state of California working in this county, working on this issue. And I don't mean that with hyperbole at all. This is the best team related to fuels management and fire prevention in the state of California that we have in Tuolumne County. So I really hope people understand that and they recognize that, because we do a lot of good things here. So thank you all. Thank you, Katie, for bringing this before us and for your continued efforts on the MSA, and your colleagues as well. Please carry back our deepest appreciation.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great speech.
Oh,
yeah, and I do think Tuolumne County is setting the standard for what the proper management of the forest should look like. And I know that we have other counties coming to us and asking us questions. I just basically wanted to say, because my colleagues have said it all, what Supervisor Campbell just said. I want to thank you, Katie, and your team for all the work that you do to continually make this happen, make us look good, and protect our community.
Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion.
I would be pleased to move to approve the Stanislaus landscape.
Oh, did we not go for public comment? I thought we did.
I'm sorry.
We did? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good.
It kind of jerked me out of a...
That's good.
Yeah.
I would like to move to approve the stewardship supplemental project agreement in the amount of $3.7 million as identified in our agenda.
All right.
I'll second.
So it was moved by Supervisor Goldenberg and seconded by Supervisor Brandon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go to reports next, and then we will convene with the closed session items. So who would like to start? Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. Nothing terribly notable in the committee stuff except some work to redo the Veterans Committee resolution. As you know, we had an issue with quorum, found out there's 16 members on the books. It's very difficult to work with. So we're just revising that to make it a smaller, more flexible group. And then working on a natural resources resolution as well to merge in a few water partners in reflection of kind of what the board's been doing with the water agency. as well. Other than that, the power's been going out in Columbia a lot.
Yeah.
It went off today. I think it went off yesterday, and then about 4 days ago. We're having quite a few issues with their new system that they installed. Something that I've been trying to work through is what can we do to help restore some of our power over power, I guess, to look at what options we might have to just have more control over it, you know, and of what we can get, because we know that PG&E is a monolith and basically a public monopoly up here. Appreciate that they came in. The people and the company, two different feelings about that. I think it is definitely something we should look into for a number of reasons, but the idea of having more local generation, more of a voice or local entity controlling our power that we actually get to be a part of, having a choice in where those revenues get reinvested back into our community, and anything that we can do within our capacity restraints, I think we need to pursue. And I'm also looking forward to when they bring back I think it's been about 30 days or so, I don't know.
End of this week.
Is that the end of this week? Thank you. I'm looking forward to the answers that they bring back and how we can help share that with the public. I did have one further call with Nathan Alonzo. I'm going to set up a meeting to talk about the shielding idea. Somebody in the public had mentioned that and brought that up when they had talked about it too. You can hear from my questions then that I'm pretty skeptical about the undergrounding and whether that will ever be done in any substantial amount. Shielding seems practical. So if we can get a timeline and a budget for what it costs and what they're planning on doing, maybe there's a way that the state, at that point, it's a cost point they can absorb to invest in it, maybe to expedite that rollout, or maybe hold PG&E accountable to rolling that out themselves. In either capacity, if they're shielded, that would address all but the lightning strike type issues that are happening. I've got a lot of frustrated people in my district, and I get it because I've missed alarms. I've had to go live by lantern light a few evenings, and that just shouldn't be happening in California, much less the United States.
Supervisor Kirk.
Two things I'll bring up. I mean, you guys know the press release for out North Tuolumne Road opening today at 3:30. I've never had, well, maybe in a couple other areas, but it's been a while. I haven't had this much of a response on an item in a long time. So a lot of parents are really thankful. The fire issue, obviously, but then just with school starting, I didn't realize how big of an issue it was. So thank you, and thank you. I gave a shout out to Mike Cognetti and his road staff and Kim Blossom. I'm sorry, Kim McFarland and Blossom. Blossom, I know, spent a lot of time. They have so much going on, and we were ahead of schedule on that, which is really, I'm just really thankful for it. The other thing I just want to bring your attention is I'm working on I'm just going to bring something before the board in the next few weeks. It's just going to be an item to consider regarding Standard Park. Their sports is always growing in Tuolumne County, and it just kind of seems like maybe we're not prioritizing the kids over, there's different leagues, and I know we want to make sure that Standard Park brings in money to help, float the bill. But in doing that, we might be excluding some teams and organizations to be able to utilize that facility as much as we should. So the whole point is, I'm going to bring it before the board, maybe have a conversation and see if it's something that we want to discuss. But the whole purpose of it is I would like to prioritize kids first and foremost, even if it means maybe restructuring some things and maybe not making as much money out of the park. But it's a more in-depth conversation. It's just something that's come to my attention in the last couple of months. So that'll be coming before you guys for consideration here in the next few weeks. And that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Supervisor Campbell.
Yeah, interested to connect with you on that, the park issue. So I don't have a whole lot to report. I'll just make, I'm sure everyone on this board follows the fires. We had several lightning strike fires in the Big Hill area and throughout the county, up your way as well. Over the weekend, those have been addressed. I think the largest was about an acre or so. But still, very scary situation. We have to be vigilant. We were fortunate up to this point. But it just reminds you that as soon as you start feeling kind of relaxed, something like that happens. So didn't get a whole lot of sleep over the weekend. I was kind of stuck to my phone. I was able to attend the Youth Sports Foundation groundbreaking for their facility that is adjacent to Standard Park. It's a, I don't know how many acre, maybe 10 acre or larger facility that's going to have one full-size soccer field, one smaller soccer field, pickleball courts, and a bunch of other resources. And they're operating in our community, and it's this multi-million-dollar project that has support, broad support from several areas of the community, including Sonora Area Foundation. A lot of other groups are backing this project, and it's phenomenal. It's a great group of people working on it, and I think we're really fortunate to have that in our community. The last thing I wanted to mention is we had our Tuolumne County Transportation Committee meeting last week, and our chair of that committee is the at-large position. So there's 2 representatives from the County Board of Supervisors, myself, Supervisor Half, and then 2 from the city, the city council. And then there's 1 position that's an at-large position, and traditionally that is the position that's the chair, so 1 citizen at-large position. Right now that's filled by Peter Rye. He has announced that he's planning to retire from that position, and so we'll have an opening very soon. So just putting that out there. It is a very critical committee. I would say requires a level of skill that's larger than probably most other committees, somewhere on a level of like the Planning Commission, because it is a big job. They deal with a lot of money and a lot of projects, and it can get it's more than just your average committee position. That's why there's only 1 at-large position. It's very important, so if you're interested, please reach out to Darren Grossi at Tuolumne County Transportation, and he can kind of give you some more information. And that's my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
Thank you. Yeah, just looking at the recent weather patterns, there was definitely some lightning. The good thing was there was a fair amount of moisture with it. Certainly much more in some areas than others, but we did have a couple of fires. And just looking at the dry lightning scenario, and we're still could be looking at that over the next couple of days because there's a disturbing amount of weather patterns that are there. Other than that, I don't have a whole bunch to report other than Commission on Aging. We had a good meeting yesterday. Really like to, work with that group. We've got an upcoming centenarian event, which will be in October at the Senior Center, and would look for any of my fellow supervisors to join me in, welcoming people and bringing them down. And I know we've done this, in the past. So Kathy Peacock is kind of ramrodding that event. And then, my last item would be just my appreciation for Michael Roberson and all the efforts that he's doing with the homelessness. It's ongoing. It's not easy. Takes a lot of flack, from, various, members, including myself and Michael, and just glad to see that we're continuing to progress. Baby steps. Takes a bit.
All right, thank you. Clerk of the Board, Heather. No reports? How about County Council, Sarah, and CAO Riggs? Okay, I just have 2 things. First, on Wednesday, I was finally, after this is the 3rd year that they've had the 2Care range tour, and finally I was able to go because I got the notice about it long in advance so I could fit it into my schedule. So I'm really sorry to have missed TCTC. I've missed quite a few with RCRC and now this range tour. But it was very informative, and something I want to say about this, we had a lot of cattle ranchers on this tour. This was the tour for the rimfire. So we toured the whole area, and by the way, that's in 2 days. That's the start. The 17th of August was the starting date for that 10 years ago. So it was a retrospect tour and talking about all the things that are being done and are still yet to be done. But we had a large contingent of cattle ranchers on this tour. And the biggest takeaway for me from that tour was that cattle ranchers can be part of the answer to, helping with our landscape and having their cattle range different areas to eat down the grasses. And it's my understanding that they are not part of the Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions group at this point. So it was a big aha for me that maybe the YSS group can put out the invitation to get at least one, if not more than one, cattle rancher, because they're all interested in being part of the solution as far as wildfires go. And let's see what happens. So then on Friday, I was not able to do the YSF thing that was in my district, so I'm really glad to hear, Supervisor Campbell, that you were able to go. I really wanted to be there, but I'd already agreed to go to the, let me see if I can say what it was. It was the Western States Congressional Caucus. So all of the Western States congressmen for the U.S. government came, or most all of them came to Yosemite, and there was a roundtable there was a congressional hearing in the park in Curry Village in their amphitheater. It was awesome. There were all of the Congress people on one side, and then there were people from around the Mother Lode testifying. One of those was Miles Menetre from Mariposa County. Another one was a supervisor from El Dorado. There were other expert witnesses, including Matt Bloom. He was there. And several others, and everybody was on the same page. Now, what's going to happen as a result? It was about wildfire, and it was about what we're doing on the landscape and what we can be doing and what the problems and issues were. Anyway, so it was great to be part of a congressional hearing, actually outdoors in Yosemite National Park. And then we had a roundtable policy after lunch regarding water, which was also informative. Long day. It was really good to take part of that, though. And that concludes my report. So I'm thinking that we can now go to closed session. And do we expect to report anything out?
No reports out.
Okay. So let's go into closed session, and then hopefully we'll be through before lunch. But even if we're not, we'll go into lunch and then come back at 1:30. And we need to read the closed session things, and then we need to ask for public comment before we actually get up. So, Heather, do the honors.
Thank you. Item number 16, closed session conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Authority Government Code Section 54956.9D1, Richard Lee v. Tuolumne County Superior Court Case Number CV 64856. Item number 17, closed session conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, one case, written demand for cure and correction of alleged Brown Act violation attached to the agenda.
Okay, so I'll go to the public at this time to see if there's any public comment on the two closed session items.
Yes, there is. On item number 17, your Brown Act violation. This is unbelievably illegal. Brown Act violations cannot be discussed in closed session. So anyway. It's all very delineated in the Brown Act, how one notifies an agency of a Brown Act or what they suspect is a Brown Act violation, the time limits on which they can do that, how you can respond, and then the cure and correct. Also, first you have to do the cease and desist, then you have to do the cure and correct. They all have time limits. Those were not adhered to. When I read the documents associated with the agenda item, it didn't even make sense to me, nor was it done properly, nor was it done within the dates allowed. And the Brown Act involves you. It doesn't involve staff. It doesn't involve the agency. It involves the board themselves. And any behavior that involves elected officials or the board has to be discussed in the open and public forum. So I have never in my entire life seen anything discussed in closed session.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, County Council, can you
Sure.
respond, please?
I understand and I appreciate Carol's passion for the Brown Act because I too have similar passion, but I will disagree. We have in the past placed similar threats of litigation, even if it's related to a Brown Act, on a board agenda for closed sessions. So it is my legal opinion that it is proper to do so. I would never place this on the agenda, and it was me that placed it on the agenda if I thought that we were violating the Brown Act. So this is appropriate forum for us to consider a threat of litigation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other public comment, we will adjourn or recess, I guess, for closed session. And are we going to do that here? Or okay. Thank you, everybody. And for those who want to come back for our 1:30 appointment, we'll be back at 1:30. Welcome back, everyone. This is the second half of our board meeting. We have a 1:30 appointment, but before that, I need to report on closed session. Originally, I said that we didn't have anything to report out, but actually we do. So, regarding item 16, which was a closed session on existing litigation, Supervisor Campbell moved and Supervisor Goldenberg seconded by a vote of 5-0. The Board of Supervisors voted in closed session to settle the lawsuit entitled Richard Lee versus Tuolumne County, Tuolumne County Superior Court case number CV 64856. The county shall pay to Richard Lee the sum of $50,000 in full payment of all claims against the county. Mr. Lee shall dismiss with prejudice his lawsuit against the county. The county believes that this settlement is a reasonable conclusion of the litigation considering all of the factors involved. In reaching the decision, the county considered the recommendation of its attorney and evaluated the allegations of the plaintiff, the county's response to those allegations, the law which applied to the case, the amount of damages sought by the plaintiff, the county's ultimate potential for liability, the costs of going to trial, and the possible costs of appeal regardless of which party prevailed in the trial court. As is the case with any settlement, both sides compromise their positions in order to fully resolve the matter. The settlement of the case was not an admission of liability by the county. It is the county's position that it is a fair and equitable settlement and in the county's best interest from both the legal and economic standpoints. Now, for item 17, which was a closed session on anticipated litigation, there was nothing to report. All right. With that, Heather, would you please read our 1:30 p.m. appointment?
Yes. Thank you. 1:30 p.m. presentation by Capital Public Financial Group on potential funding options for the development of the Law and Justice campus and staff direction.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to be here. Hi, my name is Mo Frank. I'm your Capital Projects Director. Here with me is Tracy Riggs, your County Administrator, and Jeff Small from the Capital PFG Group. And what we want to do today is really a follow-up of an item that was presented to your board back in 2021. And that was, at that time, we had hired Lionakis to go out and do a program study of the Law and Justice Center. We have currently 3 vacant lots out there that haven't been built on. You know, that the whole reason back in 2009 the county purchased that 48 acres out there was the development of a Law and Justice Center campus. And we were, over the years, we've been able to develop different portions of that site, and we have, as you know, and the community is aware, we have the juvenile facility, the Superior Courts of the state of California, we have a regional transit hub, and we have the new Dan Becker jail out there. But that left 3 remaining sites, plus the rest of our criminal justice division that needed to go out at that time. And so what we did is we asked Lionakis to go back through and do a programming document. Go to each of those criminal justice departments, look at their space needs, see what they required now, verify what was done. The previous space needs study was conducted back in 2004. So a lot of changes have happened in there, and a lot of the projected population, the projected staff needs, and the projected growth in what those departments might need was very much based on a time really before we entered into an economic downturn, when a lot of our departments lost staff, when a lot of the federal and state grants went away. And so it was very important at this time in 2011 that we go back and we look at those space needs and really right size what each of those departments need. The program study was presented to your board in regards to, there were 4 options given to you in regards to those 3 parcels and what would be on that site. So besides at that time, the partners, the criminal justice partners that we were looking for at that site, we also include U.S. Forest Service. They have a building, as your board is aware, on Greenlee Road, and they are in need of relocating for the future. And so we included them in our discussion at that time to see if we could manage fitting them on our site. The other component of that study included the development of Gardala Ranch Road. As you know, the way the campus was set up and the way the EIR was developed, we are required to put in 2 different accesses in and out of that facility. The current road, Justice Center Drive, was not designed nor constructed to handle all the traffic that would potentially be on that site. So Gardala Ranch Road was always from the inception designed and thought about going through various parcels and hooking up to Sanguinetti Loop Road. At the conclusion of your board meeting, you didn't really distinguish which of the 4 options that you wanted to select as far as the design. The cost was quite staggering at the time. You were really concerned about that. And what the direction staff received from that presentation was to go back out and to hire a financial advising firm to really assist us and to give us a financial analysis. And in that financial analysis, we were really looking at several things. We wanted them to look at some of our big capital projects, and for right now, one of our biggest capital projects was the Law and Justice Center and the next steps that we wanted to look at in taking. And then we also wanted them to really look at our debt service, what we had, what we're committed to, what we were paying, and then what could we afford. And then talk to us about some financial options in which we could then possibly look at if we were going to consider developing this site. So here we are today. County staff has been working with Jeff and his group for this past year and providing them data on what we think is from the partnership, the programming study that we had from Lionakis, and looking at current costs that we have now, and looking at what it would take to develop it if we were to proceed both with Gardella Ranch Road, and then also looking at a critical need that we have, and that's in the Sheriff Administration Building. And specifically looking at those two things, we have included in some of our discussion U.S. Forest Service in regards to, because there were 2 of the 4 options, included them as in a joint building, and that's why U.S. Forest Service is attached to that. But in our presentation today, we just want to concentrate on Gardella Ranch Road and this Sheriff's Building. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for welcoming me today. Again, my name is Jeff Small of Capital PFG. We're located in Roseville, and a little bit about myself and our company. We're registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission as a municipal advisor. And what that means is we have a fiduciary obligation to our government clients to represent their best interests when it comes down to financing. So the information that I'm going to relay today comes from the standpoint of a financial fiduciary advisor. And that's what I am, and very, very happy to be here. I want to thank you, Mo, for the wonderful opening, because I think it's really important that we recognize that the county has had a vision since 2004 to have a law and justice center. I am very mindful in doing our analytical work, the improvements that have been made on that 48-acre parcel that you purchased, many years ago, and the fact that there's a courthouse out there, there's a juvenile detention facility, there's an adult facility, water. You've done a lot, and I do want to congratulate you for taking these major steps on that campus. Today, we're going to talk about the Sheriff Building, and I'm bringing the information forward in order to give you information to help with future decision making. The purpose really for me today, and what I would like to achieve, is just to bring current information that may have been provided in the past, so you can look at it and evaluate it and determine, what is the most reasonable way to move forward. And Tracy's going to come and help us at the conclusion of my remarks and help us with that decision making. So with that, I'd like to jump into the PowerPoint and also indicate that there is a more complete report that's contained in your agenda item that you're welcome to look at and review. But what we're talking about is basically a 31,000 square foot building and a road and a radio tower out in the Law and Justice campus for the sheriff. The total project cost, and we're going to talk about costs, it's about $32 million in really $2025. So you can see that there would be space for 88 employees and 58 parking spaces. So I wasn't going to spend too much time talking about the building of itself, just wanted to provide some basic detail for you. As far as the cost goes, what you'll see on this chart is, the first row is just project components. So when we talk about the Sheriff Building, there's a number of items to be considered. Of course, folks are familiar with just constructing a building. But when you construct a building, you need architects and engineers and construction managers. There's fees and testing. And those types of expenses are referred to as soft costs. And it's a very same pattern when you talk about a road. You talk about the construction of the road, and you talk about construction of hard costs. there's a line item of a radio tower. It's an estimate. We haven't selected a particular radio tower, but we want to come forward with some line items to help ensure that when we put information down on paper, we know what we're looking at. We know what we're looking at. These are budget items, right? And certainly there's some furniture. We did have a cost back from the program study in 2021 from Lionakis, and that was $22.8 million. Now, prior to COVID, inflation wasn't really a thing. I mean, I'll be 60 years old in March, and I remember being young, and inflation was a really big thing, like in the 70s. But for most of my professional career, inflation really hadn't played a role. In fact, for many years there was deflation due to technology and advances in productivity. However, since 21, inflation has been a major component of any type of construction project or just going to the grocery store and buying, bread and eggs. And I think everybody here understands what inflation is and how it impacts the revenues that they have in the budgeting, whether it be for personal use or for governmental use. From 21 to 23, there was about 20% inflation, and then there were some other code changes. So that's 25%. We've gone ahead and we've moved forward this inflation by 5% in 23-24, 5% in 24-25. We've come up with a new total. So that new total was $31,674,000. And in working with county staff, we want to be reasonable. We want to be conservative. We don't want to be overly conservative, but we really want to give your board and the community an idea that, maybe, things could be more expensive. We've added a 2% county contingency of $633,000, which I think is reasonable, and it's modest. So we're at $32.8 million. Now, what the slide doesn't show, and I think one of the things that is super important to understand, you can look at the slide and look at the cost escalation and say, okay, well, 20%, 5%, 5%, 5%, oh, that's 35%. But what the slide doesn't show you is the impact of compounding. So 35% is really more like 41% because in 21-23, we got a 20% increase. So now our number for that future inflation increase of 5% is compounding off a higher number. So as we think about the future, as we think about our planning, one of the things that we have to be mindful of is not only do we have inflation, but we're starting to compound numbers. The other thing that we have to realize is not only are we compounding numbers, but when you go out and borrow the money, you're paying interest on compounded dollars. So time is important. It's probably more important now than 5 years ago. But I did think that was important to look at. In a moment, I'll talk about financing options, and USDA has a good subsidized loan program. That program usually takes 12 to 15 months longer. And in the past, that really wasn't that big of an issue. It was more of like, okay, we just have to do more planning and we have to get our approvals. But in this day and age, what it means is, that's another 5.25% of inflated prices. So the reason why I am talking about this is because I think it's important to be mindful of some of the things that staff thinks about when looking at the project, so you can feel comfortable and have confidence that we really are, we're looking under the rock. We are really trying to be careful and trying to give you the best information we can in a reasonable way. Okay? Sources of repayment. Now, we know that the Law and Justice Center, it's not a revenue-generating enterprise. There's not special funding for it. It's a general fund item at the end of the day. You would be pledging your general fund to make payments for this facility. What that means is we need to take the time to analyze the sources of repayment. What revenue is available or can be made available? Where can we commit revenue from? And that's an exercise that we're currently talking about. We're going to talk more about that. We're also looking into different types of cost avoidance. So an example of that might be, maybe you're a homeowner and maybe you've put solar on your home. So you don't have an electric bill anymore. So you've avoided that cost and you've hopefully replaced it with a less expensive expense such as solar. So to the extent that there's energy cost savings, to the extent that there's savings from maintenance and other improvements, and even savings from having your public safety services in a centralized location. I mean, those are things that they certainly have a qualitative benefit, but they also have a quantitative benefit too. So part of what we want to do is we want to look at those revenues. We want to consider cost avoidance. We want to consider rent that the sheriff is currently paying and expenses that they may be paying in the future just to remain at the current status quo. So I'm going to go into some financing options here in a minute, but if it's okay, I don't want to get too far ahead of you, Madam Chair. I don't know if there's any questions so far before we get into the actual financial numbers.
Okay, let's take a check. Anybody have questions for Jeff? All right, continue.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So financing options. As Mo said, the first thing that we looked at is, okay, what is our current existing debt profile? And so you'll see on this slide, you'll see aggregate debt service. And so in 2014, the county had some pension obligation bonds. So with pension obligation bonds, it's a little bit like maybe a solar project, right? You have payments that are required to be made to CalPERS. And in 2014, the county substituted some of those payments. They exchanged those payments for a debt payment, right? Now, those debt payments are basically considered, in my mind, like salaries and benefits. Those go out to 2032. Payments start at $700,000. They end at $896,000. In 2018, there was a lease revenue bond for capital projects, and you can see that debt service. And I'm starting from 2025 on purpose because we're not building the facility right now. We're sort of looking at what our payments are going to be like when we actually having to start making debt service. And then you've got your judgment bonds in 2018. And so on the far right, you'll see the county's total debt service, okay? Staff the request has been, can we look at that? Can we look at the existing debt and try to structure, customize debt service for the Law and Justice Center around current debt that is rolling off? So I'll be talking about that in a minute. But before I do that, I would be remiss not to at least come back to the USDA subsidized loan, share with you a little bit about how that works and what that impact is on the county. So what you have here is you have a USDA loan. USDA has a process. It's sort of like building a custom house. You have to go out and get an interim financing for the construction of the building. When the building, and so that interim financing is basically going out to the capital markets. Typically you get a credit rating and you sell a lease revenue note to the capital markets to fund that construction. That lease revenue note is secured by a USDA, they called it takeout financing, taking out that interim financing, okay? So you'll see that we don't have any payments. The green area, that shaded area in the lease revenue bonds doesn't have any payments during the first 3 years because we have an interim construction loan. Okay, so this aggregate net debt service that I'm looking at, it's the same table that you saw in the prior slide. All we're doing now is having a column for the 2024 Law and Justice bonds, let's call it. So there's a period, a 10-year period, and it's outlined in blue. That period, the loan payments are a little bit higher. They're just over $2.2 million. They're about $200,000 higher than the payments on the out years because USDA requires its borrowers to set aside 10% of their payment over a 10-year period. So you're paying in a little bit more, and at the final year of your financing, you're allowed to use that reserve. It's called a reserve fund. You use it to pay out to make your last payment. You'll see on the far right, you'll see if the county were to proceed with the USDA financing, what would it mean for payments coming out of your general fund? And so that's what you see in that aggregate net debt service column. I went ahead and I put a red box around $4,713,000. The reason is because that would be the high point. So as I'm looking at these financing options, what I'm looking at right now is we need to get comfortable not only with what the payment is right now, but what that maximum payment is that's coming out in a few years. We have to get past that. So that to me is a very important factor, right? I'm going to take another pause because the USDA, I've said a lot about it, and I don't know if you would like to ask questions about that portion before we move on.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, thank you so much. So this next slide, it's very similar to the lease revenue bonds. It's a public offering. Again, it's the same sort of slide. We've got the existing obligations laid out, and then we've got a column for the 2024 Law and Justice bonds. And you will see that green area, that box area. Those are interest-only payments on the loan. Okay, so we're not paying off any principal at this time. This is the cost of carrying the loan. It's just under $1.7 million. Now, you'll see a blue box just under that in year 2033. The reason why that has a blue box around it is because when you make that final payment on the 2014 pension obligation bond in 2032, the county has room to start paying off the principal. Now, this is something you can't do with the USDA loan. USDA requires, it's called level debt service. Basically, the loan is always the same every year, except for that first 10 when we're setting aside money for our reserve fund. So we see an increase in the payment from $1 million, call it $1.7 million, to call it $2.3 million. And then again, you'll see in 2038, another blue box. And the payment will jump up a little bit. Why? Because we will have paid off the judgment bond, and we can afford to pay down more principal. And then the same pattern repeats itself. You make your final lease revenue payment in 2048, and so in 2049, we can, again, increase that debt service. You'll also see off to the right, you'll see the red box. And again, to me, it's all about the red. A lot of it is about the red box, because my biggest concern is making sure that we're comfortable with, when we hit that max, what is it, and is it manageable, okay? So that's about $4.2 million. It's significantly less than the USDA loan, and I think that's really important, because when we talk about different loans and financings and interest rates, affordability is of primary importance, right? We want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we want to have the lowest cost of funds. We want to use our money as wisely as we can, but we also want to make things as budget-friendly as we possibly can. So we had a wonderful finance committee meeting, and I'd like to, personally thank the two supervisors who participated and staff and the other electeds, because I thought we made a lot of progress in terms of talking about the project, and there was a suggestion that was made to say, well, you're going to make these payments, but what would be the relative impact of these payments today? So I thought about that, and I thought, well, that's an interesting question. Let's look at that. So the first thing I did was I looked at your assessed value growth over the last 14 years. That's the time period for which I had numbers, and I saw that, okay, over 14 years, your budget has grown by 2.19% every year. Okay. Well, and in the Finance Committee meeting, we talked about maybe a 3 or 4% discount rate on payments that we're making in the future to determine what it would be like to budget for those payments in today's dollars, if you will, if I've said that in an understandable way. So what the main slide says is relative impact of future payments on the general fund. It starts in 2027. You see it goes out to 8/1/2054. I took the debt service from the public offering option because that was the most affordable given our red box. And then I wanted to kind of give you some perspective. If we were to discount those payments at 3%, what would they look like? If we were to discount them at 2.19%, what would they look like? And for me, a value from doing the exercise was, if you want to look at the payments this way, you still have to make the stated payment. That is a stated payment. But when I looked at it, I saw, okay, let's say 2044, my payment is $2.6 million. If I discounted at the 2.19%, that would be like making a $1,682,000 payment, which is kind of similar to what my payments would be if I'm making interest-only payments beginning in like 25 or 27. Okay? So I appreciated that exercise and way of looking at it, and I've just sort of bookended it based on the conversation that we had. Let me stop there and ask Madam Chair if there are any questions on this part of the slide or even the prior slide.
Anaya, do you have any questions? Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
Yeah, so it is a lot to digest, and maybe if I can just help a little bit, right? So let's look at, of course, the assessed value. Your assessed value today, or in 2009, was $6.7 billion. Today, it's close to $9 billion in 2023. So it's gone up, almost $2.3 billion in over a 14-year period. So that's about 2.19%. Now, when you build your budget, a good portion of your revenue is coming from property taxes. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm budgeting for the county and I want to come up with a good growth rate for the budget, what would a fair growth rate be? So I thought, you know what? Let's use the growth rate on the assessed value, since that is how you're receiving your property taxes. And then I took the debt service that we had from that public offering. We had the interest-only payments at $1,682,000 for a period of time. Then you recall it jumped up to approximately $2.3 million in 2023, and it jumped up, when the pension obligation bonds rolled off, and it jumped up again when you paid off the judgment bonds, and it jumped up one more time. We paid off the lease revenue notes, and so that's the debt service. If you go to the far right, you see that 2.19% column. So if I'm trying to be my best future self, what does my future look like if I am a budget? Okay, my budget, right, it's growing at 2.19%. So what would the relative payment be? If I'm going to pay $1.6 million today in debt service, what would that look like in the future for the county, in 10 years out, assuming my budget can grow by just over 2%? And that's the purpose of this slide. And then if you wanted to be more aggressive about it, you could use the 3%. It makes the relative impact a little bit lower. We're not advocating for really one or the other, but in presenting the data, I think it's important to give you something to source.
One quick question on this. You mentioned budget. What I'm seeing is assessed value, that this is the assets being leveraged for our bonds. So was this same thing? The 2.9 or 19% seems to be from the total assessed value of the county, not the budget. Have we done the same with looking at the general fund?
The only thing I looked at is I looked at the assessed value, which is the basis for deriving your property taxes.
Assessed value of all the properties in the county.
Of all taxable properties, with that assessed value being the value assigned by the county assessor.
Okay.
That's it. Again, looking for some objective hook to hold on to say this is a reason. If we're gonna think about this in terms of it having a, what is the relative value of this payment in 10 years out? I think that, and there might be other ideas too, and certainly open to them. But I thought looking at your tax base, which is derives your property taxes, and I think how you're budgeting for growth in property taxes, your unrestricted revenue, that I think is a reasonable hook, if you will, to use for that purpose. Okay, so, and I appreciate the questions, and I just want you to know, any question you have is happy to answer it and want to answer it. So we're going to talk a little bit about public-private partnerships, or P3s. Now, a public-private partnership is one way where a community can finance, maybe design, build, operate, or maintain a public structure. There are other ways too. I mean, when we talk about public finance, in my mind, what we're talking about is community funding. In this case, the community funding aspect has been all about looking at the general fund and revenues that might be available to the sheriff and costs that we can avoid. What do we have, right? P3s don't usually inject capital, new capital, into a project. I view the public-private partnership mostly as a method of procuring something. And again, it could be procuring design of a building and a road. It could be construction of a building and a road. It could be to build a facility and have somebody else own it, have somebody else operate it. The county could be a tenant. But with a public-private partnership, there's not a single way to define what those roles and responsibilities are. They're based on two things. Number one, what it is you're doing. And number two, what are you trying to achieve? What is your goal? Now, with that in mind, we do see public-private partnerships typically for revenue-generating types of facilities. Take a parking lot, for example. We know in a parking lot, it will have a certain number of parking spaces. We know we can charge each person who comes to park in our parking lot or parking garage a certain amount of money. So when we go to a developer and we say, hey, we want a public-private partnership, we want you to build a parking lot for our town. Now that developer can go to the bank and say, look, I have a project. It's going to cost me X number of dollars. We know that, we have a revenue target of X number of dollars based on the number of spaces, based on the number of days a week that'll be rented out, based on a certain occupancy rate, and you can do that with any number of activities. That's for a parking lot. It could also be used for, say, an office building. It's really no different than I want to buy a build-to-suit office building for a business. It would be the same type of thing. But it's actually, I'm using my balance sheet, my capital, my promise to repay, because I'm a business person. I know that I can go out and get a loan and build this parking garage or build whatever it is and make money. And I'm happy to use my balance sheet to do that. There are other forms of public-private partnerships. Health and Human Service buildings. It's a way where many counties have used public-private partnerships. Why that? Why Health and Human Services? Well, as you know, the county gets federal reimbursement dollars to lease space. So there's a repayment stream to, so if the county went to a developer and said, I want to build an HHS building, there's the opportunity to program it, build it, work through your cost plan, work through the state controller's office, confirm that if I build this building, I'll get enough federal reimbursement, I can pass it through to the owner of the building as rent, and it works. With a law and justice building, there isn't a separate repayment source. It's not revenue generating. So you can use a P3 for that purpose. But I think that the rules are such that I'm not sure you're gaining really anything, because if someone comes and builds a P3 for you, it's going to be a company of some sort, but it could be a wealthy individual. They have a cost of capital. So they still have to go to a bank and get a loan. How is that loan secured? Well, it's going to be secured by the county's credit rating because you're the tenant. So what is your credit rating? You have to do a lease. Well, under those lease payments, that's security for the loan. So you're obligating yourself just as you would with a typical borrowing. And so it's not clear. It's not clear if there really is an advantage of having this form of procurement for a non-revenue generating essential function of the government. We're not talking about privatization. We're not talking about a private party running a sheriff station. We're talking about the county itself. So with that, and there's you can't skip out on prevailing wage. It's a public facility. You pay your prevailing wage. So we look at all community opportunities, whether it be a grant, any sort of special funding, any funding from the state of California, funding for rural counties, whatever we can. We want to use all available and reasonable revenues that we can actually document to apply to debt service. But at the end of the day, the reason why we're here today is just to communicate to you that there is a sheriff building. We've brought the cost forward up to date. We understand what the financing terms are to date. We've added some cushion, a reasonable, like on the interest rate, for instance, we added 1/3%, right? You saw we increased the cost a little bit too for inflation. Can't guarantee that these will be the costs when we move forward, but we feel like it is reasonable enough for you to look at this project, whether it be the road and the building or the road, and be able to make some determination as to the best way to move forward. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but I know that we have some questions for you that we would like to get your feedback on.
Okay, so I'm not sure, Supervisor Happ, if there's any clarifying questions I have just for the presentation, and then we could go to these first. Okay.
Yeah, and in advance, just for the board to review the questions that are up here, because if you have some questions that you need to have answered first before you can answer these 4 questions. It's a good time right now to actually look at those questions to make sure that you get your first questions answered first. Yeah. So you said you had a clarifying question. Go ahead, Supervisor Kirk.
On which I think it's on slide. Where is it? Slide 9 on the presentation. Yeah. So just help me, correct me if I'm wrong. The 2024 law and justice bonds. If we were to build it, would that be the payments coming out of the general fund, Tracy? Okay, so start at 1.6, and okay. Do we let me see here. Do we have any? I know this is specifically for the building. Do we have any idea, kind of like a cost analysis? Have we done anything internal as far as the current building and what that is going to cost to maintain, or what that might cost to continue to operate or fix into the future, like capital projects into the future with like an elevator being $2 million, and like, do we have any idea? What I'm trying to put in my mind is, okay, I see this, but I also know there's a cost associated with keeping that building going.
You're talking about the dispatch,
the dispatch, the current. Do we have any idea, kind of an idea, what that looks like into the future?
Good afternoon, Eric, our County Administrator's Office. I stepped out a moment ago to try to make a phone call to get just that answer for you, because I knew it was going to come up.
You were reading my brain.
No, somebody else was reading it for you.
Oh, cool.
And sharing with me.
Thank you.
So, unfortunately, right now, the system we have in place, it tracks the labor hours, but not all the invoices. So we'd have to go back and basically mine out all that information to find out what that cost was over, say, the last 5 or 10 years.
Okay.
So that is something that we can work on for you, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me today, like, I'm not going to make any earth-moving decisions, but I'm trying to formulate in my mind, like, I'm trying to figure out a way to justify where we're going to go. So that's just part of my thought.
Supervisor Kirk, I think something else to consider, and I know the sheriff is here, but just we continue while we fix some of the electrical, as brought up during our finance committee by Captain Vasquez, is that the building was never, that building, remember that dispatch is in the old part of the jail. The jail itself was the newer part of the building that we're no longer using. They're in the older part. Part of the problem we have is that this current building, when it was built, was never built to sustain the type of equipment and the volume of equipment that they have. While we keep doing the updates to the electrical, we have had instances where 911 has gone down, as we're aware. The electrical goes down. We've had 2 generators at one point where they did not kick on and assist in that. And I know the sheriff has some specific details should you want those, but I know he's been keeping track of those. So I think there's also that risk that we have when the building just fails. No matter what we do to it, it just fails sometimes because of the age of the building, even though we keep doing the Band-Aids.
And I think the sheriff has some stats for us, so if I can ask him to come up and let us know. There you go.
Thank you, Board. I just want to get up here and talk a little bit about the operations. Supervisor Kirk talks about the cost. Well, the cost is, I hate to say it, more than money. It goes to public safety. Over the last 6 months, we've had 6 failures of our 911 system. One of them for up to an hour. One of them was during the storms in January. One was during the storms in March. And I can't stress enough, this is one of the, I think that my personal opinion is that this is the most critical piece of infrastructure in this county. It is the hub for all first responders, fire, ambulance, law enforcement, with the exception of CHP, who sometimes gets it through another cell service. Everything comes through this building, and the building's outdated. It's falling apart. I mean, just not only have we had a fire in our electrical system, we've had a number of power outages where the generators are not kicking on because the power system was built in the 60s. It's just unreliable, and I think this community deserves a reliable 911 center. I can't stress that enough. Not to mention, during this last storms, I know a lot of the county buildings had water leaks and things like that, but we actually had water running into our dispatch center. We had a bucket in the middle of our dispatch center catching water. If that water gets on our computers, shorts them out, we lose it again. We may not be able to get them back up in any amount of time. My point being is this is very, very critical, and we've got to do something. I know this is very costly, and I'm not sure what the end result is going to be, but we have to do something. We have to start moving forward to get our dispatch center redone. So, anything else?
I did have some
questions of me.
I did still have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, since you're up here, Sheriff, since you're up here, just kind of when because the juvenile hall was approved before I was up here, but wasn't the majority of that grant funded?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you pursuing? Are we looking at all the above type options? Because I know people before us did a great job getting that jail facility there. But to me, it's kind of like one and the same. Yeah, we got the jail, but like you said, the biggest piece of the biggest technological piece of infrastructure that operates this whole county for OES and for dispatch, all stuff, was left out of the equation. Is there any way to go after similar funding to?
To my knowledge, right now there are no grants out there just to build a dispatch center or sheriff's administration.
Like they don't consider the jail and dispatch one and the same? It's two separate things in their brains?
They were definitely separate. Matter of fact, they wouldn't allow us to put our administration in the jail. It was a very specific grant.
Okay.
The one thing that I have seen is, for instance, Kings County went in and asked the governor for a line item, and it was basically to build another sheriff's office and donate the old sheriff's office as a homeless shelter. You know, there are things out there. We have to go out and we have to pursue.
Sheriff or Newsom wants homeless things done. I like the idea. Can we make an appointment with him? Donate the sheriff's department, old jail, and get an admin building out of it?
I'm not suggesting that as the specific answer, but yes, there are ways to go out and explore. There is ways we may have to put some political pressure on the BSCC, things like that.
Did the governor approve that line item?
Yeah.
Just to interrupt a little bit, you need to remember what we've just been talking about as far as the status of that building down below. It wasn't fit for us to put inmates in. It's probably not up to standard to put people in there. You know, and as Sheriff Pooley was saying, you know, I do a lot of research on behalf of the county in regards to grants and trying to pull in money for us on behalf of a variety of projects and programs. And to build just an office space, you know, as Sheriff was saying, it's not there. There are some opportunities for us to maybe pull into, and the Sheriff would know better than I would, from the 911 system for equipment. So a small portion of that, but you still have the building facility costs that are a bulk of the costs that you saw in Jeff's slides up on his presentation.
Okay. So
let me see if I have any.
I think the answer is really we have to go through some sort of financing to do this. Even if we were able to go out and put some political pressure somewhere and get some sort of money, I would doubt it's going to cover the entire cost. But yeah, absolutely, we can go out and look.
Okay. I think that's it for clarifying questions.
Okay. Supervisor Brandon, did you have any questions?
I think we had an opportunity to talk about some of them in the Finance Committee, and just to follow up on some of the things. So in line with that, have we reached out to our state legislative offices, federal legislative offices, and had a meeting with their staff about any opportunities to fund this or incorporate this into the budget or have this be any type of bill?
We have not approached them on the Sheriff Admin Building. We have approached on the federal level for earmarks. We've been focusing on fire. So we have not diluted that conversation because we know we're trying to build fire stations as well.
Right.
So we have not done that for a Sheriff Admin.
Okay. Have we reached out to kind of any of the other counties? I know with the Juvenile Justice Hall, cost was a consideration. The idea was to regionalize it. Are there any opportunities to do so with some services in other county areas?
Can you be more specific in your question?
Office space for regional, federal, state entities, whether there's an opportunity for dispatch, the mutual aid system. I'm just brainstorming, but talking with other areas of any type of co-location opportunities.
those could be vetted. I'm just not sure what they would be, and it would need to pair up with the sheriff and the justice system that he's running, but that doesn't mean we couldn't look at it.
Okay.
But we already know adding in the U.S. Forest Service is something that is not feasible financially, so I'm not sure.
So we looked at the U.S. Forest Service too. I want to ask, what other partners did we potentially request? To my knowledge, there are other law enforcement agencies in the county that are looking for, I think CHP is looking for a new place, I've heard. Have we reached out to these other entities that might not be, 150 people, but would be looking for a similar setup?
Yeah, CHP actually was allocated, and we're going to buy that smaller portion that's up on the east side of the property, and they chose to not use it because it's not big enough. They want more space than that. So I have not had a follow-up conversation with CHP. I don't think we have had any in the near, but we could. We can go back and talk to them for sure.
Okay.
But if there's was it 3 or 5 acres, that parcel?
It's 2.4 acres, and they were looking for at least. Sorry, the current acreage of that corner spot was just about 2 acres, basically the same size as the juvenile facility. And what CHP was looking at, as Tracy was just mentioning, was somewhere between 3 and 4 acres to be able to fit not only their building but their fleet.
Okay. And have we identified, I know back in February 2021, we talked about the idea of concessions. I know in Finance Committee we discussed the idea of the radio tower revenue opportunities, but also lowering the cost. And beyond that, have we looked or identified at any other revenue opportunities or ways to offset some of these costs?
Not at this time. It makes it, U.S. Forest Service was for us, a nice symmetry to it, a nice blend. It fit within some of what activities and operational functions that the sheriff had, so that was a nice combination for us to consider a co-location with them. For example, dispatching and stuff like that. But as Tracy was just mentioning, when we looked at it, there wasn't enough fair market rent that U.S. Forest Service can pay that it made it viable for them to be on this site. And so I'm afraid that if we enter into any other partnerships, we're going to be going down that same path.
Okay. And I wanted to ask one other thing, too. I've been busily kind of looking up since the meeting, just other places that have been built that seem to be similar. I think we only got the one bid on this way back when, right? Did we have multiple? I think it was just Lionocus, correct?
We didn't have any bids. What we were looking at is Lionocus to do a programming document, look at the space needs that were suggested back in 2004, then look at what they are now, and then they had a independent construction cost estimator coming to do a cost estimate based on the square footage of the infrastructure needed, the parking allocation and construction we needed to do, Gardella Ranch Road, and then the buildings themselves. So that's all. There was no bids that then went out at that time.
Okay, so no bids, it was just an early design. I guess the question is, I know we work frequently with Lionocus, but have we done targeted outreach to other building entities? I know we normally put up a bid. We hope to get bids. We don't always get a ton, to see what else may be available out there.
We haven't at this time because staff doesn't have direction from your board to proceed.
Okay.
We left that meeting in 2021 not knowing how you wanted to use the remaining 3 parcels. What kind of partnerships did you want to form? Did we want to go after and do Gardella Ranch Road first, or wait for later to put it inside a construction project? So staff has kind of been hanging out there, kind of waiting for really, as directed, a really good financial analysis for you to see where we are, to see what we can handle before we then went out and started exploring other ideas.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Supervisor Half, I just based on some of Supervisor Brandon's questions, I think it might be good to better understand the limits that the sheriff may have on who can be co-located and the types of services that can be in his building when it comes to the justice system and the network that he's working in. So hopefully he can provide some of that, because there are limitations that we have on who we can co-locate in that building, and other types of services. Like, he probably doesn't want a whole restaurant in the floor where he has admin, where they're coming in and out and there's all these people that they haven't gone through any kind of background check.
Depends on how good the food is. No, if you look around the state, the nation, there's a reason why police departments and sheriff's offices are located by themselves. And it is for all those things that Ms. Riggs just said. You know, we can't have the probation department because they're bringing probationers into the building and things like that. There is a limit to what we can have in our office. You know, if we wanted to co-locate with another law enforcement agency, we'd probably be fine. Outside of that, I even think there's probably a conflict having the DA's office. Just to keep that separation for the prosecution, I think you could run into trouble there. Unfortunately, I haven't looked into anything like that, but I think there's clearly a reason, security reasons, access reasons, why these law enforcement agencies are standalone agencies.
So is there a conflict of co-locating on a tower with other agencies, other organizations?
And that comment extends to the Forest Service as well?
The Forest Service does have a law enforcement division,
element
obviously.
To it.
The idea behind the U.S. Forest Service obviously came from the CAO's office and how that would work. And it would be, and I may be speaking out of turn, so please correct me if I'm wrong. It was basically one building with some common areas that were separate. So, you know, separate entrances, separate parking, things like that was, I believe, the concept.
That's correct. The concept was exactly as Sheriff Pooley is talking about, where there were some areas for both organizations that needed to be private. We needed to talk about separate entrances for the very different kind of clientele that was serving, that each entity was serving. But there are some shared spaces because, again, when we talked to Lionakis, they knew that we were under a tight budget constraint. And so as you look at effectively and efficiently designing the building, which we haven't done yet, we've only done that, just scratch that basic programming levels kind of discussion. You look at things like conference rooms and bathrooms. Dispatch was one area we felt we could kind of co-locate in the same area and maybe share and reduce some of the expenses in that way. Parking, you know, instead of really trying to configure two different kinds of areas, there was some ability to do that. So you try to look at efficiencies when you bring partners together.
Right, but so, and this is why I'm asking about it, because this is new to me. Mm-hmm. So that model that we're talking about, where it's one building co-locating, sharing certain elements, not sharing others, that doesn't pencil out, or we now know that doesn't pencil out for the Forest Service, or is that what you're saying, or
right?
And is that from them? Because I hadn't heard that.
Sorry, so that was in the, we removed that because it's such an increase in cost. So in your report, I don't have it in front of me, the increase, let me just tell you real quick, and it is what was on the agenda system as well. So to do it, looking for the page that shows both. Yeah, it brought it up by 20-30 million. I'm going to go to Jeff because those are his.
Looking for it.
So what it did was Forest Service would occupy 1/3 of the building, which is about 18,000 square feet. And their rental, just the debt repayment cost is about $1.3 million. So that's about double of the number that we were looking at. We're looking at $650,000. So if the Forest Service was willing to pay $1.3 million plus there's, third for operation and maintenance, then it can work. But and I'll defer to staff here in a moment to address that. If there was a situation where the county said, this is our building, we own it, we're willing to rent 1/3 of it, we don't need to break even. We're willing to take maybe loss for a period of time, but we know that over time, because we own the building, we'll have a tenant. We see that it could be in our long-term future benefit, if you will, to have a tenant, even if they're not paying enough, we can still make that work. But what we determined is the total cost of subsidizing that additional $650,000 of rent. I mean, we're struggling just with the sheriff facility only. And I'll stop for a minute.
And I'm sorry I keep going over, but that's the part I'm confused about, because we're talking about these costs increasing for the county and for the cost of the facility. It stands to reason the Forest Service is experiencing those cost increases as well. So it's not like it's static, that they can't afford more over time.
They can only they are limited to fair market value and so many square foot per employee.
And so the fair market value is so far off from what the cost would be for the county that we would be
like
subsidizing
$2 to $3 more per square foot. Yeah. So
Okay.
The cost, so we do have it, and I took it out just because it's so big. So we could have left it in there, but I just felt like it was going to convolute the conversation. But we're talking going from $32 million estimated cost for construction
57.
to $57 million. It is in your packet, but it goes up to $57 million. The county is financing, and the U.S. Forest Service simply is limited on what they can pay, as you would imagine, to fair market value. We're up to like what, $4 almost a square foot? Is that what it was? $3.59, $3.95? I can't remember.
Fair market value
And then
right now.
the long run was 179 million.
Yeah, for fair market value for rent for office space right now is anywhere between, whether in the city or out in the county, is anywhere from $1.50 to probably $1.90 a square foot is what I've seen. And so if you figure even $1.80 a square foot, the revenue we would bring in would be about $385,000 a year, which obviously our debt service would be almost twice that. So.
Debt service on the third that they would be renting.
If we included the Forest Service in the construction, went with that 57 million number, then the debt service goes up quite a bit.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, so I've got some questions here. First of all, I want to step back in time on the cost of the jail. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the state funded roughly half the cost of the current new jail. Is that correct?
Yeah, we received 2 grants to pay for the jail. The first one was $13 million, and the second one was $20 million.
Okay, so $33 million.
So it was well over half of the costs were paid for by the grants that we received from the state of California.
What was the total cost of the jail? You're saying well over half. I think it was roughly half.
40? 50? Okay, all said and done.
So it was not well over half, but
So it's roughly
60%. $42 million was construction.
Yeah. So the point I'm making here is that, and I was in favor of the new jail. I don't have a problem with that, but when we don't have enough funding, so what's our, and I just saw where Debbie Batista stepped out, but the debt that we are paying per year on that additional 40% of the cost of the jail.
That is in the presentation, and it's actually on the slide right here. So you'll see right now it's around 1.3 million, and that's in that third slide for the 2018 revenue bonds.
Okay, so a little over $1 million a year.
Yep.
On that amount, and so how are we proposing to fund even at these numbers right now? And I want to question some of the numbers, right? How are we proposing to fund $32 million? And I think it can be done for less, and we'll have that conversation. But
Yeah, we don't have a proposal for how we pay, just like we didn't when we built the jail either. We just made it work. We did not have any money set aside to make that $1.3 million. We just knew we were going to have to adjust our spending in order to be able to pay that amount. It's the same thing we would need to do if you were to take on this debt service. We will need to adjust our spending in order to accommodate an additional debt payment of $1 million or $1.6 million.
so, and again, I'm not trying to, I'm really in favor of this project. I know the building is needed. I know we need to do something with the dispatch center. But in the past, without having a solid plan on how it was going to get paid for, we ended up laying off a lot of employees 2 years in a row because we didn't have enough money in our budget to fund everything that we needed to fund. And I mean, that's just, we as a board have done well with this current board in keeping our finances in order. I don't want to see us slip back and end up going, how the heck are we going to pay for something, right? And, so I'm very much in favor of the project. I had a couple other questions that we talked about during the finance committee meeting, which was the cost of the radio tower. And I'm not looking for a definitive answer right now other than I seriously questioned $3.5 million for a radio tower because I think there could be rooftop applications maybe as much as a tenth of that cost. And I'm also concerned about the cost of the road. During the finance meeting, Mo, we had a discussion about perhaps changing the path of that road to a bit higher level along the Caltrans right away because it's a lot more favorable, fairly flat, going up there. So, and this was, where Supervisor Brandon and I both had questions. We're both very much supportive of the project, but we wanted to flush out some of these questions, quite honestly, before bringing it to the board. We both, and I'll just go on record stating it here, we both voted no. We didn't want to bring it to the board today. And again, I'm very much in favor of the project, but I think we've got some work to do to flush out, some of these costs. As far as, dispatch center, Sheriff, maybe you can pop back up here. Thank you. So I'm very well familiar with interagency dispatch centers. Quite commonplace in the fire service with county, state, and federal employees all in one common center, including law enforcement activities, CLETs, and what have you. So I see no reason why we couldn't explore, a dispatch center that's interagency. It's done in all over the place, So is there something more to this? It's not a matter of background checks, right? I mean, we look at all the security issues, of the employees one by one and make sure that they're qualified to, be in the center. But is there something else that would prohibit us from doing a interagency center?
No, I think it would be great if we could have everybody who dispatches in our county in one building. I think that would be the perfect world.
Right.
But you have Sonora, you have fire. Do they want to? And you probably have U.S. Forest Service has their dispatch center on Greenlee. Do they want to? Is it economical for them? Are they motivated to do something?
Sure. And I can't.
I don't know they're as motivated as we are
because
of our infrastructure.
Couldn't answer, for them, right. But certainly it's possible. Well, let's move on. I've got other comments to make after. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. So I'd like to take it to the public to see if anybody in the audience has any comments or questions that they would like to verbalize. Seeing none, I'll bring it back then. Can we move on to your 4 questions now?
A little rambunctious there.
And how would you like to proceed? Would you like each one of us to answer all of them rather than going one, like everybody answer number 1, everybody answer number 2? I think there's value in each person answering all of them because they are interrelated. What?
I would like somewhere in there that we can do comments, because it's just restrained to 2 questions at the beginning as well.
Okay, so do you want to start with comments then before answering the questions?
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I think it's a good idea to go back and just be the specific answers on it. So this stuff's hard to give a yes or a no answer
Exactly.
to. So I think Supervisor Goldenberg summed it up well. I think this needs more time to develop and kind of chase down ideas. We wanted to keep it in the Finance Committee. We only had 2 hours to basically look over the financing, ask some questions about that. We didn't have time to have much of that come back as far as any questions that were had. We know that we need a new facility. We know that the old one is not in good condition, is costing money, but we just don't have the money for what's proposed right here. We just don't have the money to pay for it. As mentioned in that meeting, we've made priority decisions, including in public safety and law enforcement, in trying to address deputy pay. We're doing other things with fire, but at some point we have to measure this together. I worry about the capital projects we have laid out, and we consider them one at a time of whether they make sense, but not together of how they're going to interact. You know, how do I weigh this if it's juxtaposed against a Columbia Fire Station, or it's juxtaposed against a courthouse that might, you know, end up being an expensive remodel, or moving the hospital to save all the rent out there? How are we pulling all of those together? So right now, what I would recommend is we wouldn't move forward with it. We would continue to develop this within committee, chase down some of these leads. I think we need to contact our state reps. We need to look at what Kings County did. I've seen Madera Jail, I believe, was done for something like $9 million. They used grant funding. I know, hard to believe, but I got the whatever ABC Fresno thing up. I've been trying to find documents for it. But to research what other areas have done, what the costs have been, to see what other companies might be able to give a rough layout of the cost for a prefabricated building or some of the cheaper designs that are out there. I think we need to look at other partners. I think we need to identify revenue potential, and a lot of these are just very detailed, nuanced conversations. Just like Supervisor Goldenberg mentioned in his comments, I'm very worried about us committing to something that we can't pay for, and there's only so many priorities we can make. If we have new revenue coming in, this is something that I think we can make the decision to do. Without new revenue, we have to figure out how is this sustainable. And it's not saying that what we're currently doing is good as far as the offices and that. It's just I don't see this being a better option if it ends up impacting the very services that we're trying to house there.
Okay, before answering the following questions, are there any other comments? Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, so just tagging on to that, you know, I'm well aware, you know, that there's a cost associated with the lease of the building on Cedar Road, right? And so we could achieve some real savings in the county budget. I'm trying to remember the amount. Is that $80,000 a year for that lease, roughly?
Yeah, that was also in the presentation. It's $128,000 a year.
Okay, so $128,000 versus over $1 million in debt. So it, you know, when I'm weighing this in my mind, it's not making the sense. Sorry, just looking at my notes here. That's all I have for now. As we get into the 4 questions, I'll answer a couple of things. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. And I certainly agree with many and some specific comments of my colleagues, particularly when Supervisor Brandon mentioned considering this project in context of the other capital projects that we have going on. We absolutely need to do that, because if you look at them individually in a vacuum, it might look like a good idea, but if you broaden out to the context of all of these capital projects that we have currently ongoing, it might not be such a good idea. But I think what we're struggling with now, and I'll just try to articulate this, and why I think it was worthwhile to bring this to the full board and not just the Finance Committee, is that I think we've lost a little bit of the vision that was originally associated with this project as a law and justice center. way back in, going back to 2009. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I think a lot of the people that were involved in the initial phases of it are no longer with the county. And so we're kind of carrying forward this vision, this concept that we are partially in the process of bringing to reality. I think it's good that we have a new jail. I think it's great that the courthouse is out there. I definitely see completing that road as sort of essential. I think that has to happen before a lot of these other things that we're considering. I guess I'm kind of answering the questions. Do you want me to do that?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, and so just looking at the fact that we need to decide if we really are committed long-term to do this, because how long is this going to take if we were to say, yes, right now, this is absolutely something we want to do, go out and use general fund, use whatever kind of money that we have, don't worry about grants. If we were to say that, it would still take 6 to 8 years, to 4 years?
1 year for finance. There's a lot of things that you can do.
I'm going to say 6 years because it's never longer.
Oh,
it's always longer than you think.
You guys. So staff will tell you that it's kind of like name that tune. I can do it in how many notes. You're looking at a lot of tasks and assignments that can be done concurrently. Mm-hmm. So when you're going out and let's say doing financing or getting all of that, you could have the architect start working on the design of the facility while you're lining up and finishing up the financing part of it. And while you're doing the design work, you can start working on your permits and everything that you needed and some of the applications that are required, like, for example, PG&E, which lately takes a long time to do. So there's things that staff can do that we have been, as we've been successful in bringing on these projects, to speed it up. But I will tell you, it'll probably be about 4 years.
Okay. I say 6. I'm adding 2 because the economy. Well, I just think. Well, anyway.
Staff is willing to take you on that bet.
I'm very pessimistic when it comes to capital projects. I'm optimistic when it comes to capital projects themselves, but when it comes to timelines, I like to err on the side of more time. Anyway, so we need to look at: are we going to be pushing this consistently? Over the 4 to 6 years that the project would take. Are we willing to take that on as a responsibility? Are we willing to set aside money that could otherwise go to adding staffing, giving pay increases to people, going to other capital projects, going to equipment, going to a variety of other services? Are we willing to do that? So those were the things that I was kind of considering going forward, and who, are we willing to be the champion to continue the development out in the Law and Justice Center in the long term? So since we're not going into the details of the list yet, I'll leave it at that.
Any other comments? Just basic comments. Go ahead.
No matter when or how this comes back, I would like to follow up with Kings County, see how they got that line item done. If it's happened before, it can happen again. Again, it sounds like when it comes back, I'd like to know what the past costs were to maintain that facility and what maybe the future projected costs would be. And then kind of what Supervisor Brandon and David had alluded to, I think everybody's kind of on the same page, is I kind of want a picture of kind of like a pie chart, like where does this fit in with fire? Because I know with fire in the next 2-3 years, we're going to be hitting that wall with that contract, and there's going to be large increases of the general fund there. So I kind of want to look at it more holistically in that sense. I don't know if that necessarily means it needs to go back to the finance committee, but I kind of want to look at like what does the general fund look long term with fire and with all these other projections and things that we have going on, including this. And then what I'm hearing, and I think what we're missing, I think where we are missing the mark, and it's probably just because we're fleshing this out, is I think we have a responsibility as a board to hear that your communications have gone down 6 times, and that's what's concerning. So I kind of want to extract that from the conversation and say, how do we fix that now? Because we can't wait 4 years. We can't wait 6 years. If that means that we need to go to the EOC on Stryker Court and add on to that or gut a few. I don't know. I just feel like that needs to be addressed sooner than later, because if we have a mega fire or we have some sort of crazy, natural disaster and we don't have comms, we don't have that center, I can't look back to this board meeting and be like, oh, we had an opportunity to jump on it and we didn't. I feel like we need to hone in on that pretty quick. And then I feel like the rest of it's kind of a longer term conversation. But I really want to hone in on how do we fix that now? Because building a building in 4 to 6 years isn't going to fix that. So.
Okay, I don't have any general questions besides answering these and having some comments that will go along with those. However, I understand that Roger Root is here, and he may be able to answer outlying question about the tower. I know there was questions about why the tower is so expensive and so forth. So, hi.
I was not supposed to be here today. I was actually supposed to be off, and I was going to be at IKEA in Sacramento today. But the most important thing my wife needed for her classroom is not in stock, so I got to stay in Tuolumne County. I was going to come up here just as a citizen and share my experience and my concerns with the dispatch center. I have over 27 years in local government, and 12 of those years were dedicated to public safety. And I assisted in moving a janky dispatch center in Davis into a new building. And I assisted moving a janky dispatch center in Roseville into a new building. And neither one of those dispatch centers or police departments were in near as bad shape as what this sheriff's office is. And I have never seen something like what I've seen in the sheriff's office. I've never seen water coming down the walls. I've never seen the kind of environment that they are working in. So I 100% support this project, and I 100% truly in my heart believe, as a citizen and as an employee who supports the sheriff's office, believe this should be the number one priority for the county in capital projects. So with that said, I do have a couple things I want to add. There's a couple reasons why the tower cost is so high. I will tell you, I built a tower in 2017. It was $1.5 million for the tower alone, not for the building and not for the generator and for the air conditioning to support that tower. We can put a tower on the building, but then you are going to limit your lease opportunities in the future. The tower we're looking at will support Verizon and AT&T and any carrier's antennas and multiple carriers' antennas. The towers that you see on top of the building over there are limited to the type of antennas that you're going to be able to support, and that will limit your leasability on those towers. And I will tell you from experience, there is a lot of money in the leases on those antennas for different carriers. I also believe that having a taller tower at that location is going to help us with our coverage in the county. Our terrain already causes coverage issues. It's going to help us with our line of sight with some of the other towers that we already have antennas on, and hopefully help coverage in some of those areas where we have trouble getting radio communications to. And hopefully in the future even help maybe with some of our broadband efforts. So that it's not just a tower, it's a building, and it's AC, and it's the infrastructure to be able to house not just our infrastructure, but other agencies' infrastructure. We currently share and co-locate in a lot of locations that are through the Forest Service and through other agencies where we have $0 MOUs with them, where they let us do that as a kind gesture because we're partnering agencies, and we'd like to do the same for them. So this isn't just a tower. It's a tower with the building and the infrastructure to support multiple agencies and even multiple vendors with leases. So there's a lot more to the tower to that. And with that said, I don't have all the locations, but I pulled 3 of the recent last 3-year state projects. The state spent over $10 million putting in towers in different locations throughout Northern California. And those towers are no different than the tower that we're looking at. So they may have more infrastructure, they may have a larger building and more generator capacity and more heat and air capacity, but they still spend a lot of money. These towers are not cheap. And if for $1.5 million in 2017, I guarantee you that cost probably has doubled since that time, just because of how much has changed in the environment, not just with with employment, but also with the cost of getting materials is just outrageous. So that's my soapbox on the tower and why it's so expensive. There absolutely are cheaper ways to go. Long term, you're not going to save any money because you're going to lose money that you can gain in revenue. The other thing I wanted to talk about that was mentioned, and hopefully this isn't too much out of bounds, but we're looking right now at a 20,000 UPS solution for the dispatch center. So when those generators that we have there, the 2 generators that don't seem to work every time the power goes out, then we have a UPS solution that will actually keep the dispatch center up for a long enough time to allow them to continue to operate until the generators actually kick in. Ideally, the generator solution would be fixed and we wouldn't have to do that, but we're going to spend $20,000 to do it because we're dedicated to making sure public safety stays functional during emergencies and during non-emergencies. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about just from my experience is, and I think the prefab building is a great idea, but long-term it's not a great idea. I've seen multiple agencies who have moved into prefab buildings, and within 10 years, there's so much destruction that the idea of putting a prefab building in there doesn't work. Now, there are new construction ideas where most of the building is built off-site and brought in, and it saves a lot of money, and we've done that. We did that when I was in Roseville, and it did save money, and it is an option, and I think something that we should pursue because it is less expensive. When you said prefab, I was thinking of a mobile home, and I was like, oh, no, we don't want anything like that.
No, not a manufactured home.
Emergency tent.
And the other thing is that I heard that I've seen a lot of is the multiple agencies in one dispatch center is a great idea. I think that if it was Tuolumne County and Sonora PD, we use the same dispatch system. We use a lot of the same services. We support each other. But when you start going outside of that and you look at CHP or you look at the CAL FIRE, you're using different dispatch systems. You're going to have multiple data centers in the building to support that. The cost of the building is going to go up. And operationally, they do kind of work differently. Now, Sonora PD would be great to house there. I think it'd be a great opportunity, but I think that you also lose a presence in downtown, which is pretty important for their operations. But I think it's a great idea. And since we use the same CAD system, I think it would be a great opportunity. It does present challenges to other agencies that use other systems. I actually went to Galveston to see their dispatch center. And in Galveston, Texas, they have 2 entrances. The Sheriff's Department enters on one side and the Police Department enters on the other side. The building is split down the middle throughout the entire building. And then when you get to the 3rd floor where the dispatch center is, it's all open. And if the county gets a call that's within city limits, they put them on hold and they transfer 10 feet over to the person next to them. So operationally, their setup, in my opinion, was a disaster. But I think in Tuolumne County we could do a better job if we were to co-locate with a partner like that. And I don't want to contradict what anyone said, but I started in 2019. And we had layoffs in 2019. The jail didn't open, and that was in May. We started having those conversations. The jail did not open until October of 2019, correct? Or was it later? It was later. So we were laying off before the jail operations actually kicked off. So that was a problem before we even started operating the new jail. And I don't think it's a problem that's going to go away in Tuolumne County. I think you guys are fully aware of that. We know that there's issues with the budget and with the revenue coming in. So, all right, I think that's all that I have.
All right, time out.
Yep.
Are you as board members, we're not as smart as everybody thinks. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. You have experience in this whole arena, Roger. So are you part of this discussion at the Finance Committee? Are you working hand in hand with CEO's office? Because you've done this before. You've been there, done it. So I think whatever we do, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think whatever we do, we need to make sure you're front and center throughout the whole thing. Is that something you're already doing with the Sheriff's Office?
Sheriff Pulley's had me involved in a lot of different conversations and a lot of things. I think that truly the operations of the Sheriff's Office falls on the Sheriff's Department. My experience comes in with what I've seen and what we've done.
But specific to dispatch,
and,
you've
yeah, and specifically, yeah, and we will work hand in hand with anyone to make sure that everything comes forward. And we have been. We've been engaged on what the cost would be. I want to up the cost. To be honest with you guys, I want to spend more money. I want to move our data center from downstairs that is falling apart to the sheriff's office. Because we're going to spend probably millions of dollars to get that data center up to par. It's been pieced together for 30 years, and we've had outages, and we have air conditioning issues, we have power issues, we have all sorts of issues there, and that provides infrastructure for the entire county, including the sheriff's office. So when that room goes down, their dispatch goes down because their CAD servers are in that room. So my proposal is spend more money and build a data center in the building.
So what's the solution to address this specific 911 call center now instead of, we need to separate, I feel like, the discussion about the admin building versus the night dispatch.
I want to tag in and agree with that. That's exactly what's been running through my mind this whole time.
So we did do a lot of electrical work when this last round of issues took place. We have not gutted that building, nor do I know how that would even work with the integrity of that building and how it's put together. So we haven't done that. But that's why we have some of these questions here for the board. There are some options, and the sheriff and I have discussed these. We even met out at the EOC, but they don't come without complications as well. So while we know at some point in the future we will need to have a new sheriff administration building, and it's likely to be out there, in the near future there are some other alternatives you could consider. They will still be fairly costly, and it'll come up with some other reasons, but that's part of what we can start vetting, and we can use the committee, we can come to the board, whichever it is that your board prefers. But that's why we have some of those up here. Now, if we talk about the EOC, we did meet out there, but remember, and the sheriff will tell you about this, but if we're going to have dispatch out there, he also wants evidence out there. So, I'm sorry, records, not evidence, have records out there. So, while we can get to that dispatch area, we don't have anywhere for ambulance and fire to go if we start trying to move offices. So, it just starts getting a little more convoluted.
So, I know we need to go through these questions, but what I'm putting in my brain is, why can't we build something out at the Justice Center specifically for dispatch?
That's what we're talking about today.
Like not an admin building out there, specifically dispatch records.
That's what we're talking
like
about.
an ADU, and then down the road we talk about maybe.
Remember, this has to be built at the 1986, I think, Essential Services Act, and it's about seismic structure because in the event of a major catastrophe, these buildings are supposed to be available for the public to go to and be safe. So
let me ask this:
That's
how many square
$800
feet?
a square foot.
How many square feet is your current dispatch? The people who go in and do dispatch. I've been in there. It's a tiny room, right? Not even the size of this. So you're saying that we have to? He's using a 30 by 30, but we have to go build a 20,000 square foot.
I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you this is what his needs are, and you're going to need to do records as well. So it can't just be dispatch. He needs records co-located.
Okay, so I'll end it with this, which is we got to answer these, but I think we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how do we do dispatch and records in something that's reasonable, manageable, and we can do now instead of. I don't understand 20,000 square feet for a.
Let's go ahead and answer these questions and see where our similarities are and see what we might be able to move forward on. And Supervisor Brandon, I'd like to start with you.
All right. Try and go through fast. So for number one, it's a yes, but it's a soft yes, as in I want to see this work. I'm just not willing to right now as is proposed. So number two, on the construction of the road, I would have to see how we're paying for it. So I guess right now, unless something really changes, I don't know if we can. I would like to see about opportunities for development on the parcels behind it. I don't know if we want to consider that, but whether that access route could be some type of impact fee, because that would be one of the roads feeding into it. Number three, looking at alternative locations for dispatch. I think I agree. Those two conversations may need to be separated. If we can't figure out something for the big one, we can probably figure out something for the smaller one. If we're willing to pay for it, actually, I think we have some county property that might be a good location for a dispatch center. So I'd like to at least be able to discuss or play out what that looks like. And then lastly, I do think we should utilize the Finance Committee to chase down some of these leads and just keep going until we kind of run out of decent ideas. It's a big investment of money. I think we can afford to put some time into a lot of this as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
Okay. So number one, I'd agree with Supervisor Brandon. Yes, but a soft yes, because we don't know how we would fund it. Number two, regarding the road, I'd like to explore if there could be other possible ways to fund just the road outside of the project to put a new building in. The road should have been there already, from what I understand. So I don't know if that's something that, we can have discussions with Public Works or TCTC or whoever. But I'm also interested in the routing of that road and whether we can reduce the cost. Right now, I'm looking at a half a mile of road for $5 million. That seems pretty steep. And so I'd like to see that explored further. Alternate location for dispatch, yes. I mean, they're failing. They're having huge problems now. We got to figure it out. We're not going to figure it out today, but I heard Roger, talk about potential prefab buildings. I think you mentioned Roseville was a project that he had.
Made off-site, not prefab.
What's that?
Roger said made off-site. I don't know that it was prefab.
Yeah, Roger was saying what I meant, which is the pieces are created like Lincoln Logs off-site, and then it's assembled very quickly. It's what Merced, UC Merced used. Sorry.
Okay, and thanks for the clarification there. Yeah, and they need space for records, of course. But the dispatch, we just need to look for solutions that are out there that would qualify for a dispatch center. I think we have some opportunities now because it's been some time since the sheriff's office has had a 911 refresh of their facility, and so my understanding that's done through CalOAS now. Anytime we're looking at a building out at the Law and Justice Center, which I'm supportive of, it's going to take many years, before we get there. So we could perhaps get some funding to assist, do the refresh, and then by the time we figure out a building at the Law and Justice Center, do another refresh. Typically it's about every 6 years or so, using the funds from state 911, funds that are collected. As far as we can talk about the issues of, anytime you have a dispatch center, a radio tower, you need a radio vault, you need a good generator system, you need proper AC because it generates a heck of a lot of heat. All those things have to be looked at, certainly. The last item was the Finance Committee vetting. I don't see a need that the Finance Committee should be the ones to have to vet this. I'd like to have staff look at these things that we're talking about, 1 through 4, and come back to us, and we'll schedule another session on another agenda to talk about it. But it shouldn't be the Finance Committee themselves making that decision. It should be the full board. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. So on the first item, so I'm in favor of pursuing this as long as the total cost is not borne by the general fund. So it either has to be from a grant, whether FEMA, Homeland Security, CalOES, I'm just naming acronyms now. I don't know that there's actually grant money available from these CDBG grants, or an earmark or a line item in the budget. I think the cost is too high for us to bear this alone as a county. So that's just where I stand on that. I think it's too expensive. Now, if we're talking about a 25% match, what have you, that's a conversation I would absolutely like to have. Item 2, so is that clear for number 1? amount less than 100% general fund allocation, I am interested in supporting it. If it's 100% general fund, I'm not. Okay? Okay. 2, yes. 3, yes. 4, I don't quite understand the question. If it's appropriate for it to go to Finance Committee, it obviously should. If it's something like this, where I think it's a very substantial discussion that is about the nature of large capital projects in our county, yes, it should come to the full board and not to a subcommittee. I also agree with my colleague Supervisor Goldenberg that where possible, these specific issues that have been brought up today should be vetted through staff as much as possible, up to the point where there's a clear decision point, a yes or a no, or 3 options that need to be made. That should be brought to the board. But I'm not really interested in getting into the minutia about financing for this. So that's my answer.
Supervisor Kirk.
All right, so let me clarify. Number 1, yes, but specifically to dispatch. If number 1 includes sheriff admin billing, which is the $32 million or $76 million in the long run, I'm not really. I'm more interested in the dispatch. So that's what I meant when I said earlier. Number 2, for the road, do we have to have that road for if we were to do the dispatch out there in number 1? We do need that road to access number 1.
Yeah, based on the document that we have, if we were to add any more, that road needs to be completed.
Okay. I don't like it, but if that's the case, then I would agree on number 2, based on my comments there. Explore alternate, yes. I want in tandem to explore other options, because if number 1 and 2 doesn't work out cost-wise, I just want to get that up and running somewhere, if there's somewhere else to have it done. And then number 4, I agree with Supervisor Campbell, and I think most other people or other supervisors. Yeah, we don't have degrees in finance, so I'd rather have you guys vet stuff and bring it before us, and we'll have a discussion about it. So.
Thank you. Okay, I held off all comments, so I'm going to make a few comments before answering these questions. And my first one is, I'm really happy that this has been brought before the full board. I think it needed to be. All of us need to have all of this information that you've presented today, and from the financial people that we rely upon, in order to make any decision about how to proceed, which way to go. So I'm really happy that we've done that today. And my next point is that there is no question that we need to provide a better dispatch for our sheriff's office. That is just beyond even being a question. And for my colleagues up here who have not been in the jail, I invite you to make an appointment with Bill, with our sheriff, to please see the decrepitude that is in, is that a word? Anyway, that is our facility there. There's no question we need to get them out of there ASAP. Okay. See if there's anything else I want to say before answering these questions. Okay, I think that's all. I do want to say that the building that either has to be built or that we already have has to be an essential services building. It cannot be just any old slap-up building, which is my understanding. Today's cost is about $800 a square foot, or the 2025 cost is about $800 a square foot, where right now an average house costs about $300, maybe $350. So we have those costs that we'd be looking at if we're going to build a new facility. Okay, so now I'm going to answer the questions. Number 1, that's a soft yes also. I think we shouldn't keep it out of our minds, but I align perfectly with what Supervisor Campbell said. It needs to be mostly other people's money and not our general fund. Number 2, we need to build that road. That we're beyond the time limit for building that road, and it has to be done. So I have a suggestion here that has not come up. If we can make a concerted effort, I don't know how much those parcels are worth, but we have at least one parcel that's not spoken for sure, that we can do some outreach for. Could that possibly fund most of the road? if we sold it. I don't know. It's something to look into, and then make a concerted effort to find a partner either from this community or that would be wanting to come into the community that would be compatible with the Law and Justice Center that could help us build that road or build a majority of it. So our costs would be less. Number 3, I absolutely want to explore alternative locations where we can do it sooner rather than later. And I know there's conflicts and issues with the EOC, but I believe that's our best opportunity to do something in the short term, like a year and a half from now, rather than 4 years or possibly 6 years down the road with a lot of debt. So I would like to ferret out all of the problems that are associated. Some of them would deal with moving people out and where do they go, and look at that very realistically, make measurements, figure out how it would work, and really full court press on the EOC. And I think my colleagues up here on the board have said basically what I feel also. Staff needs to do the heavy lifting. They're good at that. And then when major decision points are up, it needs to come back to the board. I want to be continually informed on this and where we're at with the decisions, because there's so many decision points and they make a difference which way we go. So I want to be kept in the loop, as I'm sure my colleagues do, with this project.
Okay, thank you. I have all of the notes. A couple things I just want to hit on as we're talking, just as a reminder, what you're all referring to that you would like to see and looking at all of your capital in one is a capital improvement plan. Those are the things for 5 years, I've been asking the prior board, this board to fund. That's exactly what that report would tell you is not only are we currently working on and what are those costs and what's the timeline, but then what do we need to be working on in the future. So just as a general reminder, that report is important. Ours is well over 10 years old and it does need to be done, and that will help you put everything into one location, and it's available to the public as well when we do that. The other thing, just as a reminder, is, and this is just so you're aware, remember we just did the project that's literally being installed right now at the EOC. So we would be coming back to your board to ask that vendor, if we use that location, to uninstall all of that equipment we're putting in right now and reinstall maybe at the classroom at the CRC or something like that. But we'll see what that looks like. But I just want to make sure that that hasn't fallen off your radar, that that project is just being completed. And with that being said, we'll start looking at all this. We can start running some different scenarios. And then the sheriff and I can work on our plan for a full court press on what might be available for any type of funding whatsoever out there, both he and his connections and then us through the state. And we'll return as soon as we have something. And Jeff, is there anything you wanted to add in?
I just want to thank you very much for a really thoughtful conversation. And it's so important for me to hear what you have to say, because I want to provide you and also be able to provide staff with something that really hits with what your sentiments are. So I am grateful and thank you very much.
Can we go through these just to clarify?
You want me to summarize? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from all 5 of you is, yes, we need to move forward, but not on county dime. We need to work it out a little bit more. Number 2 is I am hearing that you do understand, there's at least almost all of you said you do understand the road needs to be built. I will tell you, Darren Grossi and I spent some time chatting last week. He says there is some funding available, but it would mean you might pull it from local roads. So we'll be bringing something to you with Darren about what that looks like for the board to prioritize, because that might be an area that you could reprioritize to put towards that road so we could get it in. So there is that option. For number 3, I have yes from all of you to look at alternative locations. And number 4, I do not have that you want to use the finance committee solely. You want staff to do it, but we will continue working with board members to keep you updated as we work through that. Does that sound? Yeah? Got a thumbs up from Gold. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for all your work on this. And with that, I think we are concluding our board meeting. 3:22. Thank you all.